Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fan fiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
Nazarick, throne room. All the floor guardians, except Gargantua, Seabass, Oriole, and Albedo were waiting in the throne room for the last two supreme beings to arrive. They had all been called here to meet with Lord Ainz and Lady Taylar, but no one knew anything besides that. They assumed that Albedo knew what was going on, but no one had yet to approach her. She had been just standing there, staring off in the distance with a content smile upon her face. They had all seen Albedo happy before, of course, when Lord Ainz asked her and Lady Taylar to be his queens, but she had never shown so much emotion for so long as she was right now. Finally, Albedo had to ask her sister what was going on with her. It wasn't like Albedo to not talk to her for such a long period of time. "Sister?" Albedo asks softly as she makes her way to Albedo. Hello, little sister. What can I do for you?" Albedo replies with a smile still on her face. "Do you know why Lord Ainz called us all here?" Albedo asks, which gets everyone else's attention on them as well. "Of course, call it a show of force if you will," Albedo says. "What do you mean show of force?" she asks. "Lord Ainz and Lady Taylar will explain when they arrive," Albedo says. Albedo and everyone else can still see the smile on her face. It never faltered, and it was rather strange of Albedo. Her sister knew plenty of Albedo's smiles. She could tell how Albedo was really feeling just from the smile on her face. This was a smile she had never seen before. It looked like she was genuinely happy with no underlying meaning. Albedo can never remember such a look on her sister's face. "You look very happy, sister. What could have you happier than when Lord Ainz asked you to be a queen of Nazarick?" Albedo asks her. "Oh no, I am just as happy as that day, little sister. However, how would you feel if you received news just as good followed by news that was just as wonderful?" Albedo asks her sister. "I suppose I would have the same look on my face that you have had since we all arrived. I have never seen your smile so genuine or for you to smile for so long, sister." Albedo says. "You are correct. I usually try to keep myself in check, mainly in front of Demiurge, but this is a special occasion, and I will allow myself to enjoy it," Albedo says. "So, are you going to tell me what has you so happy?" Albedo asks. "You see." Flashback. "I want you to have that talk with Albedo before she leaves for the Riestei's kingdom." Taylar replies. "You don't want to come?" Ainz asks. "What talk?" Albedo asks. "No, I'll be fine here with Narbrol," Taylar says. "At least let me summon Albedo or Seabass to stay with you," Ainz says. "Still overprotective, I see. I could decapitate Flutter with a backhand probably, and he is the strongest magic caster in this country, and I'm a healer. I doubt you have much to worry about," she says. She gives him a kiss and leaves the room with Narbrol. So what talk, Mamanga?" Albedo says. "It would be better to talk in Nazarick," Ainz says. They step through the gate and into Ainz, Taylar, and Albedo's bedroom. Albedo is a little confused at the sudden appearance in their bedroom if he was going to talk to her. She supposed it was one of the most secure places in all of Nazarick. Just as she was about to ask Mamanga what the talk was about, he stopped her question with their lips meeting. "Cue adult activities. Maybe I'll write a lemon about it, who knows." Ainz and Albedo were just getting back from cleaning themselves up in the shower. Albedo loved that Mamanga watched her every time she got dressed. It made it feel like she was beautiful to him, and that made her just want him more. She was curious if that was really what Taylar wanted him to talk to her about. This was the first time they had ever done this without Taylar also being there. "I knew he was perfect. No other being could satisfy a succubus so much and retain his soul," she thinks to herself as she watches him get ready. Mamanga? Albedo says as she watches him put his armor on, and she has to control her urge to pounce on him again. She was genuinely concerned about devouring his soul if they made love. She knew, as a succubus, it was something that naturally happened if a partner was capable enough to please her. It usually only took a few orgasms, and the succubus partner would have his soul consumed. Mamanga had certainly surpassed that limit long ago, and she never felt a single speck of his soul leave his body. It was comforting to know she didn't have to hold back when it came to giving her master all the love he could ever want. Yes, Albedo? Mamanga replies. Did Taylar really just tell you to come sleep with me? Albedo asks. She was genuinely curious, since this was the first time it was just them. It wasn't as simple as that. It was just one of the things we talked about. That kind of sounds weird. She pointed out that you desperately would like a child and the fact that Taylar and I already have Oriole, so she wanted to try and give you what you want, and so do I. I think it will be difficult being a ruler and a father, but I'll make it work somehow. Ainz says. Albedo is nearly in tears at this point, and it's taking all she is just to keep it together. She only desired two things in her life: to marry Mamanga and one day carry his child. It seemed she would be granted both her selfish desires, and she was beyond happy. Ainz noticed her holding back tears and made his way over to her to embrace her. Maybe we should talk about the other thing we talked about to take your mind off of that. Ainz said. I don't think you'll ever get my mind off of that, Mamanga. I am just so happy, Albedo says. Well, Taylar also asked me an odd question. It caught me a little off guard until she explained her reason for asking. Ainz asked. What did she ask you? Albedo asks. She wanted to know if I found anyone else in Nazarick attractive, he tells her. Albedo is certainly curious why Taylar would ask Mamanga such a question. She then thought of a few things to herself as to why are we not enough for Mamanga? Can even me and Taylar not make him happy? I figured this day would come eventually, but didn't imagine we wouldn't be enough so soon. As Albedo has all these thoughts in her head, Ainz can see the beaming smile she had about having a child slowly turning into a frown. Albedo. He grabs her chin to make sure she is looking at him in the eye. I don't think you aren't enough for me. I can see it on your face. You and Taylar are more than enough. That is not why she asked me that, he tells her. Why would she ask you then? I know you are the ruler of Nazarick and can take as many brides as you like, but I thought we would be enough at least for a little while. Albedo says. You both are Albedo. I was perfectly happy having you two as my queens for eternity and no one else. Taylar told me she wanted to know because she is attracted to some of the female denizens of Nazarick. She has never felt like this before in the countless places we have been, and it is new to her. She could admit when a woman was beautiful, but since coming here, she feels differently about some of the women of Nazarick, and it has her conflicted. Like myself, she sees most of the citizens here as our children, but there are some she feels differently about. She didn't know every former member, as I did. She has only ever met 10 of the others, so her feelings towards the 30 she never met are different than mine. Ainz says. Like who, Mamanga? Albedo asked. Now, her curiosity was in full gear. She was hoping beyond all hope that the name Shaltir would not escape Mamanga lips. As she looked up at Mamanga, he seemed to be hesitant to tell her. If Taylar does not wish for me to know, I understand, Mamanga, she finishes. No, I'm sure she won't mind, but you cannot tell any of them. I understand full well how some of the denizens would like nothing more than for them to be the target of my, or Taylar's affections. I'm honestly not sure how I feel about it yet myself. 2 wives were weird enough for me to get used to, not sure how long it would take for me to get used to having 7. Especially since one of them is one of my best friend's daughters. Ainz tells her. He might not have said any names yet, but Albedo was a little concerned Shaltir was amongst those names. She remembers Mamanga spending a lot of time with Pero, and Shaltir was his creation. She knows Mamanga had a few close friends in the guild, though not just Pero. It could also be Tabula, Olbert, Touch Me, Punidomo, Nishikienrai, Buku Buku, or Takamikazuchi, not to mention Taylar, but she created Oriole, and Albedo saw how he treated Oriole. There was no way she was an option. Do you not see me as Tabula's daughter? Albedo asked. She already knew the answer as to why he didn't, but it might help her figure out the 5 other people Taylar was talking about. I think you already know the answer to that question, Albedo. It doesn't help that Tabula distanced himself from me by the time he left. He finally came clean one day and told me why. It was stupid beyond reason, but he made his choice. Ainz says. Why would he do that? Albedo really wants to know why her creator left her. It might bring a little closure for her and somewhat lessen her hatred for the other 39 supreme beings that left them. To put it plainly, jealousy. I suppose I was also partially to blame. He was, let's say, enamored with Taylar, as I'm sure you are aware since he created you and your sisters in her likeness. He didn't like that she always wanted to be in my party or wouldn't leave my side when we were going out together. I thought she was near me all the time because I saved her from her old guild members. I was oblivious to her feelings at the time. I didn't think I could ever get someone like her, but apparently, Tabula knew her feelings and didn't like it one bit. Ainz says. The closure and little bit of relief Albedo were hoping for never came. Instead, her feelings of rage just increased exponentially. To think that her creator would abandon her because Taylar would choose Mamanga over him was borderline rage-inducing. She secretly wished her creator would be found so she could beat him to death with her own 2 hands. Mamanga, none of that is your fault. Albedo was going to continue, but was interrupted by Ainz. I know, Albedo. It just seems stupid to throw away 10 years of friendship over something like that, but enough of my sob story. I suppose I never actually told you who those 5 people were, he says. I believe I know of at least 2 Mamanga. You do not need to tell me if you do not wish to. Albedo says. No, it's fine. I trust you not to tell them. Well, all but one. He gives a small chuckle at the end, realizing who one of the people is. I would never tell them if you do not wish me to Mamanga. Albedo says with an incredibly serious expression. So, you would keep that from your sister? I'm pretty sure you tell her everything. He laughs again. You and Rabido remind me of when you and Taylar are left alone. It is like you have known each other since the beginning of time. Ainz says. A smile spreads across Albedo's face after he says that. She remembers the conversation she had with her sister about Mamanga and the not-so-subtle push she was trying to give her to try and gain his affections. I will not tell my sister, but you and Taylar might find her more open to the idea than you think, Mamanga. Albedo says, with a smirk. Anyway, since you know one, I suppose I'll tell you the other 4? End flashback. So there are 5 more people who may gain Lord Ainz' affection, sister? Rabido asks as a smile forms on her face. Possibly. Lord Ainz still wasn't so sure of the idea of having more than 2 wives. I still find that intriguing. I always thought someone as powerful as Lord Ainz would just require a harem for him to be satisfied. Lord Ainz is truly one of a kind, sister. Albedo says. He certainly is, sister. Rabido says, remembering her first encounter with Lord Ainz on the 8th floor outside the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary. As they're finishing up their conversation, the doors to the throne room swing open and Lord Ainz and Lady Taylar enter. Everyone drops to one knee. Albedo started to then stands up straight to greet Ainz and Taylar. It was still a reflex she was trying to break the habit of doing. Rise, everyone. This isn't so much a meeting as it is a trip. Ainz was going to add that there was no need to kneel in such a situation, but it would just fall on deaf ears anyway, so he just saved his breath. All of you are aware of the lizard men situation, correct? Taylar asks. We are Lady Taylar. Albedo answers for everyone. Good. Then, as you know, most demi-humans bow to those with power. So we're going to show them our power so they understand they have no choice but to accept our rule. I will give them a chance to remain free, but I doubt they will be able to accomplish it. Ainz says. You are too generous, Lord Ainz. Demiurge says. Now, What is the best way to show your power without simply killing everyone? Ainz asks them. I am unsure what you mean, Supreme One. Demiurge says. You put on a show, Demiurge. Theatrics are very handy, especially to a simple-minded people like the lizard men. So, this is what we're going to do. Green Claw Tribe Village. Zaria Sashasha was successful in gathering the leaders and warriors of the other lizard men tribes. It was not easy for him to get all of these lizard men to put aside their differences and band together to fight this undead threat. He knew, though, that if they did not, none of them would probably survive. Meeting the most beautiful woman he had ever laid eyes on during his journey was certainly a shock to him. He had never even thought of a family, and now he just wanted to survive this ordeal and hear her answer to his question. When the scouts returned and told him the undead were on their way, he mentally prepared himself. When the scout told him there was different undead than they had seen headed this way in much larger numbers, he didn't like the sound of that. The undead finally broke through the tree line, and he could see well over 1,000 of them. By his estimation, it looked to be about 3,000. He thought gathering up over 1,000 lizard men would be more than enough to put an end to the undead, but now it seemed he just led his people to their extinction. He saw every undead covered skull to phalanges, sorry about the bad bone joke, LOL, in gold magic armor. Each skeleton he saw in the front rank was holding a standard with a red flag of a symbol he had never seen before. He was about to tell everyone to take their positions when a frigid wind picked up towards him, and it seemed to drop the temperature 30 degrees in an instant. That has to be control weather, a tier 6 spell.
Crush says to him.
I have a feeling this is not going to be as easy as I thought. When did they switch out they dash? He is interrupted by Zenbaru. It looks like they're starting, he says. He takes a look at the undead and notices that they are in fact moving, but they just seem to be changing formation. He assumed they would begin their attack, but it looks like they're just trying to make room in the middle of their formation. When they finally stopped moving, that is when he saw them. Standing in the middle of the undead formation was some being wearing a black cloak that completely hid his entire appearance. The only thing you could tell about him was the hellish black wings spread out wide behind him, the glowing red eyes coming from the hood, and the extremely large scythe he currently was holding in his right hand. It had a black twisted handle that was adorned with jewels of various color, and the blades seemed to be made of blood. To the right of Death was a woman with blonde hair, a strange dress, and pure white wings. She didn't have a single weapon in her hand and didn't look ready for combat whatsoever. Next to her was an older-looking man in a black suit and white gloves. He also held no weapon. When he turned his attention to the left side, he saw a woman standing next to him with black hair, horns, a white dress, white elbow-length gloves, and a pair of black wings sprouting from her waist. Standing to her left was a woman with blonde hair, a gold-armored dress, and a gold helmet with wings coming off of it. Only one person had a weapon, and it made him wonder what the hell was going on. With Ainz and company. Ainz stopped at the edge of the swamp and took in the lizard men gathered. The look on their faces was priceless, and the show hadn't even begun yet. He let out a little chuckle, trying not to break character and ruin the moment. What's so funny, Ainz? Taylar asks quietly. Do you see the look on their faces? He says, not turning to face her, so he doesn't screw this up. Yeah, I think some of them have shit their loincloths already. Taylar says. Well, let's get the show on the road. Taylar, Albedo, are you ready? Ainz asks. They both take their place on either side of him. Taylar holds her right hand in the air like she is reaching for the sun, and Albedo does the same with her left hand. As soon as their hands extend out, large white circles with blue glowing runes expand from their positions and begin spinning rapidly. Of the few experiments Ainz was able to run so far, this was by far the most beneficial in his opinion. In Yggdrasil, only one party member could cast super tier magic, then everyone in the party would have a 10-minute cooldown on all their super tier spells. It seemed in this new world that all cooldowns were individual regardless if you said they were party members. Taylar and Rubido both had clear vials in their hands with a green liquid in them shaped like hourglasses. Ainz always cursed himself for spending so much money playing that damn machine trying to get the ring of wand mastery. It seems that in this new world, all of those things he received instead were very useful. Taylar played that game just as much if not more than him, so she had just as many timers, horns, trinkets, and other things that were crap in Yggdrasil but very useful here. He ended up getting the ring, not from the game, but from Yumeko when she turned in all her gear. It was the only thing he used from his old comrade's gear. Taylar had finally won the ring that same day and tried to give it to him as a gift. When he told her Yumeko gave him hers, he took her ring and gave her Yumeko's, so he didn't feel like such a dick. It was the same exact ring, but she seemed to be happy with how Ainz did it. After he finishes reminiscing, Taylar and Rubido shatter their hourglasses. Super tier magic. Creation super tier magic. Eclipse. Taylar's magic circle breaks, and a freezing gust of wind rushes out over the swamp. The seconds the wave passes over the water, it freezes instantly. The temperature drops again, and the lizard men begin pulling their frozen feet out of the ice. They scurry up the small hills and begin shivering from the sudden cold weather. As soon as Rubido finishes, nothing seems to happen, but right as the lizard men begin healing those who took damage from the cold, darkness begins to descend on the Green Claw village. It is only the afternoon time, so they all look up towards the sun, and what they see, they cannot believe. Something is moving over the sun like a lid, blocking off all the rays of the sun and plunging them into darkness. Right as the eclipse is about to set in, they look back at the beings who did this and see the one in the middle with the scythe slowly begin to raise his left hand like he is calling forth something from the underworld. To their horror, that seemed to be exactly what he was doing. Silent triple maximize magic. Plague of undead. As Ainz finished his spell, thousands upon thousands of black skeletons began to rise from the ground and frozen swamp. He chose undead from the lowest list possible for this spell to maximize their numbers, but that didn't mean they were undead he did not like. Black-owned skeletons were some of Ainz's favorite undead, even if they were only level 15. Their black bones were much denser than ordinary skeletons, but his favorite thing about them was the fact that they were immune to fire, as well as all the other normal undead immunities they possessed. They seemed to seep right out of the soil to come and serve their master. Before anyone could even think to count them, there was already well over 3 times the amount of undead that was already present. Once they had risen, Ainz simply pointed his finger in front of him, and the skeletons began marching wide, straight out onto the frozen swamp. Ainz could hear the lizard men shouting instructions to prepare for battle. He couldn't wait to see their faces when they realized what he was using this amount of undead for. When the black-owned skeletons reached the center of the frozen swamp, they began interlocking their bones together in a giant square. The lizard men could see the pile of bones getting larger by the second. In just a few minutes, a large platform with steps had formed from the army of undead that was summoned, about half the size of the stone gargantua threw in the anime. They were so perfectly interlocked together that if they had not seen what it was made of, they would never believe it if someone told them. After the platform had been made, the gold-armored skeleton standard bearers started marching towards the steps in 2 perfectly synced columns. Once they reached the base of the steps, they all made a precise 90-degree turn to face each other and saluted with their flags to make a walkway for the supreme overlord of death and his companions. Ainz starts walking down his improvised red carpet towards his platform. Everyone had already been told what to do, so they quickly fell in step with him. Taylar on his right, Albedo on his left. The rest of the Guardians, including Rubido, Oriol, and Seabass, took their positions behind the rulers of Nazarick. Once Ainz got near the edge of the platform, he summoned 3 thrones behind him. He grabbed his cloak with his free left hand and quickly pulled off the item and threw it into storage in one swift motion. Quick change crystals are so useful. Even for something like this, he thinks to himself. Every one of the lizard men was stunned by the sudden appearance of 3 thrones, including Xarius. What he did not expect was the appearance of the being in the middle with the black
wings.
He thought that when the being took off its cloak, he would be less frightened by his appearance, but when he took in the being, he felt more dread than ever. Standing before them was a demonic angel with blood-red eyes. His tan skin and black hair were the only things about him that didn't scare the daylights out of them. His armor, which couldn't really be seen at first because it looked like a black void, slowly came into focus. It was black metallic armor made of a metal that Zarius couldn't identify at all. It had spikes all over the armor coming from every angle imaginable. The spikes were not uniform in any way. They were all twisted and different lengths. In between the spikes were skulls and faces that seemed to be stuck in an endless scream of agony or pain. It looked like a set of complete full plate without the helmet, but Zarius could tell that armor was much lighter and flexible than normal full plate. When the being spread out his black demonic wings as wide as they would go, he truly looked like the angel of death come to pass his judgment on the lizard men. Ainz took his place on the middle throne as Taylar, Albedo, and the rest of the beings of Nazareth he brought took their places on either side of them. He cast his gaze upon the lizard men and stuck out one finger towards their village. Silent, suffering clouds. 10 black clouds made of negative energy and faces twisted in eternal torment quickly dart in the sky surrounding the village to deliver the message of the Supreme Being. We carry a message from the Supreme One. Send your representatives forward to receive your judgment. Make haste, or the Supreme Overlord of Death shall quicken your demise. Zarius is shaking at the message delivered by the terrifying clouds. He is brought out of his trance when his brother asks him a question. Will you join me, brother? Shasuria Shasha asks. Of course, brother. Zarius says to him. Please be careful. Crush says to him. Don't worry, we will be right back, he assures her. They started making their way towards the platform to talk with the Supreme Overlord of Death. Thank you for coming with me, brother. Shasuria says. Don't worry about it, brother. At least this way we will only lose one village chief and a lowly warrior if they decide to kill us. Zarius says to him as they finally make their way to the base of the platform. I am the village chief of the Green Claw tribe, Shasuria Shasha, and this is our mightiest warrior, Zarius Shasha. The chief tells Ainz. Ainz says and glances at Albedo. Demiurge, it seems these lower life forms don't know the proper posture to adopt in front of a supreme being. Albedo says, Command mantra, prostrate yourselves. As Demiurge finishes his words, an incredible force pushes Shasuria and Zarius down into a bowing position in front of the platform. Let them raise their heads, Demiurge. Ainz says, You are permitted to gaze upon the Supreme One. Demiurge says, and they can feel the ability to lift their heads but still can't move any other part of their body other than trying not to be flattened into the earth like ants. I am Ainz Gaun, Supreme Overlord of Death and Exalted King of Nazareth. I was going to make your races fall under my rule, but if this is the mightiest warrior you have, I'm not so sure it is even worth it. Demi-humans are supposed to be naturally stronger than humans, but your mightiest warrior probably won't even qualify as more than an iron-ranked adventurer. Tell me, why should I spare your race? Ainz says. He was mighty disappointed that their strongest warrior was only level 19. He could have brought the Swords of Darkness here to wipe out all of these lizard men, and they probably wouldn't have had any trouble at all. His collector spirit, however, didn't want to wipe out an entire race, especially the white lizard man he saw from the Red-Eye tribe. The lizardmen tribes are a proud and brave race. I know that we can show Dash. Shasuria's words are cut off by his head slamming back into the ground. Address the Supreme One appropriately, or you shall suffer for eternity worm.
Demiurge says to them.
It is fine, Demiurge. I have already heard enough from them. I will make this simple Green Claw village chief. I will give you a chance at freedom. If you succeed, I will leave the lizard men alone for all time. If you fail, you will submit to our rule. Ainz says. We surrender, Supreme One. Shasuria says. I thought you were a proud and brave race and you give up so easily. All I see is a coward with no bravery whatsoever. I will return in 2 hours. If you can cause a single wound to the champion of Nazarick, I will leave you alone forever. It doesn't matter if it is one of you attacking or all of you. Just one wound, and I will leave you in peace. Just know that any who challenge the champion of Nazarick will perish. Enjoy those 2 hours, lizardmen. Ainz says. He stands up from his throne and opens a gate back to the fake Nazarick. As Taylar, Albedo, and everyone else makes their way back through the gate, they give some last words of encouragement, or insults in some cases, to the lizardmen. As the last of them disappear, the thrones vanish from the platform. The platform of skeletons sink back into the frozen swamp. The standard bearers return to their previous spots in the formation and continue to stand ever vigilant, waiting for the champion of Nazarick to arrive. After they all arrive back at the fake Nazarick, Ainz makes his way farther into the building. That is when he notices something that wasn't here last time he talked to Cocytus. What is that? He points to what looks like a throne made out of the bones of various races. I knew you were coming here, Supreme One, and there was no throne for you to sit upon, so I built one for you. I am just sorry I could not finish one for each of your queens. Demiurge says. This throne is a little creepy, but pretty fitting for someone who likes the name Supreme Overlord of Death. Ainz thinks to himself. I had no idea you could build things like this, Demiurge. It is very impressive. Ainz says. I know it is not as magnificent as you deserve, Lord Ainz, but your servant is humbled by your words of praise. Demiurge replies. Not that I don't admire your craftsmanship, Demiurge, but you're not making mine out of bones, are you? Taylar asks him. It was true she was impressed with his craftsmanship. In that, she was not lying, but she definitely didn't want to sit on a pile of bones. It was giving her creepy goosebumps just seeing that thing right now. I would never dream of having the supreme being of life sit on a throne of death. I felt it appropriate for Lord Ainz's title, my queen. I am sculpting yours out of white marble and Overseer Albedo's out of black, but I am not as confident a sculptor as I am a craftsman, so I am taking my time to make sure it is fit for you, Supreme One. Demiurge tells her. I'm sure it will be perfect, Demiurge. Taylar says. I'd like to sit down, but I'd feel like an ass sitting while Taylar and Albedo have nowhere to sit. Oh, I an idea. Ainz thinks to himself. Cocytus, Shaltir, come here for a moment. Ainz says, and both guardians kneel before him. Yes, Lord Ainz, they both say. You both wish for a punishment, even though I have told you it is unnecessary. I believe this is the perfect opportunity for your punishment. Shaltir, stand to the right of the throne, Cocytus on the left if you will. Ainz says, and they both get into position. Good, now get down on all fours facing the wall. Not sure how much of a punishment this will be for Cocytus, but I'm sure Shaltir will dislike this immensely. Ainz thinks. Ainz takes Taylar's hand and guides her over to Cocytus. He motions for her to sit down. He goes back to Albedo to do the same thing. He notices that Albedo realizes what Shaltir's punishment will be, and she has a big smile on her face. Ainz leads her to Shaltir, and she happily sits on her back, making sure to wiggle her ass on Shaltir to get comfortable. Then Ainz takes a seat. It is surprisingly comfortable for a throne made out of bones. Demiurge has some real skill making furniture. Lord Ainz? Albedo asks. What is it, Albedo? He says. I don't recall there being someone with the title champion of Nazarick. May I ask who you were talking about, Lord Ainz? Albedo says to him. Albedo had asked the question everyone wanted to know, even Taylar. When they talked about this, he simply said he was going to have someone fight them under the same conditions, but never said who was going to do the fighting. Of course, that would be me, he says to them. But Lord Ainz, we cannot put you in any dang dash. Demiurge is cut off by Ainz. Do you honestly believe a group of people who at the highest level are 19 can do harm to me, Demiurge? No, Lord Ainz, I simply do not wish any harm to come to you no matter how slight the possibility. Demiurge says, I am fighting the lizard men regardless and alone. I need to test my scythe and see if I get the same results with the lizard men that I do with other races. Although, I suppose naming myself the champion of Nazarick probably isn't a good idea. A tournament sounds good, but I don't want you attacking each other. Oh, I know. Ainz has a light bulb moment in the middle of his rambling. We will do it how we always did in the guild. We shall put it to a vote. Everyone in Nazarick shall vote for the one person they feel deserves the title. We shall exclude myself, Taylar, and Albedo from the vote, and we will decide on the winner if there is a tie. Any objections to this? No supreme one, they all say. Good. Now let's see what they lizard men are up to. Ainz says as he brings the remote viewing mirror in front of him. Ainz watches the meeting between the village chiefs of the lizard men and listens into their plans. It seems he's going to be fighting all the village chiefs minus the white one. This works out great in his plan. The white lizard man was the one he certainly didn't want to kill. He hadn't seen any other white lizard men. After watching the meeting, he goes from place to place in the village, seeing how everyone else is reacting to his challenge. They all seem to share at least one emotion: fear. It seems his theatrics paid off just as well as he assumed they would. After looking around some more, he came across a sight he definitely didn't want Aura, or Mare to witness, and ceased his use of the mirror. Now he just needed to wait the rest of the time he gave the lizard men. 2 hours later at the Green Claw tribe village. 2 hours passed in the blink of an eye for Zeriosu. The lizardmen warriors who were going to partake in this battle were already assembled near the front gate. They numbered just over 300. It seemed a bit much for Zeriosu to take on a single enemy. He figured most of them would just in the way of each other, having only one target to attack. Even his brother tried making this point, but eventually they gave in to the logic of being able to overwhelm the enemy, and someone would get a wound in to end the fight. They were all covered in war paint, cheering each other on, but Zeriosu could see the uneasiness in their expressions. He didn't fault them for that. After that display earlier, he was doubtful of their success even if it was against one opponent. The champion of a being of that magnitude earlier had to be something from a nightmare. The only war of words they were able to win at was sending the younger warriors back to the village so they could live on. If over 300 was too many already, over 500 was just completely unnecessary. Zeriosu knew it had to be close to time, but when he looked over at the undead army, they were still standing as still as when their overlord left. Hey, Zeriosu. At least it looks like everyone is in good spirits. Zenbaru says to him, snapping him out of his thoughts. It seems that way. Hopefully they can keep that spirit after we start the battle. Zeriosu replies. Just as Zenbaru is about to say something else, the skeletons across the swamp begin stomping and banging their weapons on their shields in perfect sync. It sounds like they are signaling the arrival of the champion of Nazarick. Warriors, let's make our ancestors proud. Advance, Shasuria says to everyone, and they begin their advance out of the gate towards their enemy. A purple and black oval opens near the other end of the swamp, and out steps the being known as Ainz Olgown, followed by 3 of the women that were on the platform with him earlier. The one with white wings, the one with black wings, and the golden one who has a sword drawn and is standing behind the other 3. The aura radiating off her weapon looks like it is crushing the water beneath her. All the lizard men slowed their advance at the sight of 4 beings. They assumed the champion of Nazarick would be a single being like he told them earlier. They started to quietly talk amongst themselves about the new developments. If there is 4 of them, we must change strategies quickly. Shasuria says to the chiefs around him. We just need to split into 4 groups, each with a chief at the lead, and pick one to attack each. Zenbaru says. We might still just want to concentrate on one of them. We only need to cause a wound. Zeriosu says. Don't worry, lizard men. Ainz shouts from the other end of the swamp. None of the 3 with me will be participating in our battle. It will be me against all of you. As much as I would enjoy watching one of them decimate you, I need you to be part of my experiment for today. Just know that any who step through that gate will perish. Some of you for eternity, he finishes. Shasuria notices he isn't wearing his cloak and doesn't have that weapon in his hand either. Now would be the perfect time to charge before he could equip all of his gear. For the ancestors, he yells out, and the warriors in the front charge right at Ainz. Excuse me, ladies, This should only take a moment. Ainz tells them and begins walking towards the charging lizardmen. Seems I'll have to get rid of some of the trash quickly to make this more interesting. He finishes to no one in particular. Then, all of a sudden, he vanishes from in front of the lizardmen. Silent, dimensional move. As the lizardmen are looking around for their target, the ones in the front hear a scream from behind them. They all turn around to see Ainz' old gown standing right in the middle of their formation. A lizard man bleeding from multiple small bleeding wounds all over his body as he stares up at him in sheer terror. Don't worry, you are about to die a quicker death than the plague that just infected you from my armor spikes. Ainz tells the slowly decaying lizard man at his feet. He looks around and sees most of the lizard men closing in on him. He smirks knowing they are just charging towards their deaths. Aura of Despair, Level 5. Every lizard man within 50 feet of Ainz drops dead on the spot in the swamp. The sudden burst of his oppressive aura even stopped those farther away not caught in the instant death effect in their tracks at the magnitude of power he just released. It seems even his companions were impressed by the display based on their quick dialogue. Is that Lord Ainz' true power? Albedo asks Taylar. No, that is just his aura of despair that caused that. Taylar says to her, smiling to herself. It was rather intimidating. Albedo says with a smile on her face. You seem excited from the smile on your face, sister. Albedo couldn't help but comment. I've never felt, well, intimidated before. Albedo responds while Taylar just keeps smiling at their conversation. Ainz can see the stunned look on all the lizard men faces and just wants to laugh. He just killed about 200 lizard men in an instant, but it didn't affect him at all. He was trying his hardest not to laugh, since it looked like every lizard man just shit its pants. Time to keep the show moving along. Let's see if I can intimidate them even more, he thinks to himself. He reaches into a void of nothingness just floating off to his right and slowly pulls out his scythe. Once he pulls it fully out of his inventory, he spins it around like it was nothing but a twig in his hand and gives an unnerving smile to the chief with the slingshot standing near the swamp elemental. Suddenly, he vanishes from sight again. Silent, dimensional move. Everyone hears a scream come from the back lines, and they turn to see a scythe cut through the swamp elemental like paper along with the chief from the Small Fong tribe. They see the chief's body instantly start to decay as it heads towards the ground. Before it can fully land in the swamp, the body is already nothing but ash. Ainz jumps down the line of ranged attackers right into the middle of a group of lizard men with slingshots and throwing spears. He grabs the bottom of his scythe with both hands to maximize the reach and spins around in 2 quick motions, killing every lizard man with 10 feet of him, their bodies turning to ash almost instantly after being killed by him. Ainz deftly and quickly makes his way down the line of ranged attackers, slaying them instantly with just one swing of his scythe until he is face to face with Shisuryu. Being the highest level divine caster, Shisuryu was supposed to be healing those injured in the battle, but all of the lizard men were dying with just one attack from the being known as Ainz' Olgaun. Just as Shisuryu brought his weapon up to strike Ainz and the other warriors were closing in on him, he disappeared from in front of him again. They looked around and saw him standing in his original position staring at the handle of his scythe. Well, seems like it doesn't matter what race or species they are. The only thing this weapon cares about is level. The higher the level, the stronger the soul, the more it absorbs towards transformation. Ainz tells the 3 around him, "Does that mean your experiment is over love?"
Albedo asks.
Yes and no. There are still people alive. I'll remedy that quickly, since they decided to bunch up. Ainz tells her. Dimensional move. Ainz appears directly in the center of the remaining lizard men ready to end this quick experiment. It was a nice try, but we will end this here. Ainz says. Widen magic. Cry of the Banshee. All of the remaining lizard men suddenly just dropped over dead on the spot. Ainz could hear the screams and cries of some of the women of the lizard men tribe seeing their loved ones killed right in front of them. The only one Ainz cared to look at was the white lizard man chief from the Red Eye tribe. She was the only remaining chief left, and Ainz knew she would do what he wanted if he returned Zariusa to life. Well, He'd have Taylar do it, but that is beyond the point.
Crush Lulu.
Ainz points right at her. You are the last remaining chief. Come and speak with me about the future of your people. He begins walking back towards Taylar, Albedo, and Rabido. Taylar, you know what to do once she agrees, right? Ainz asks her. Raise dead on the monk, resurrection on the shaman, and true resurrection on the traveler, right? She replies. Ainz just nods his head and turns back to see if Crush followed him as he commanded. Not to his surprise, she is almost to them. Once she gets within 15 feet of Ainz, she drops to her knees and bows her head. I have come as instructed Supreme One, she says. What do the Lizardmen tribes seek, Crush Lulu? Ainz asks. We only wish for peace and prosperity, Supreme One, she replies. That is an easy thing to grant under our rule, but we all know peace and prosperity are not enough for everyone, he tells her. I am unsure what you mean, Supreme One. Crush responds. Come now, I know you're not stupid. There will always be those that are greedy or deceitful. I know just the person to look out for that sort of thing in the Lizardmen village, he tells her. No one would dare do that, Supreme One. Crush replies. I hope you don't take me for a fool. There are always those who think like that. All I need you to do is look out for those that plot rebellion, and I will return your precious Zarius to you. Ainz tells her. You can bring the dead back to life?
Crush says.
Of course we can, but if you betray us, the resurrection spell used on him will end, and he will die again. So, what do you say, Crush? It is only a one-time offer. Ainz finishes. It didn't take long for Crush to come up with her answer. I agree, Supreme One.
Crush says.
Very good. We'll give you some additional help. You are to stay as one tribe. You and Zarius shall be the chiefs. Shasuriu will help you both, and Zembaru will help train your military along with Zarius. You shall have 1 week to start to get things organized, then we will return and see where you need help. Now, Taylar, if you would please. Ainz says. Taylar makes her way over to where the 3 she needs to resurrected were located. Luckily, Ainz didn't kill any of them with his scythe. Taylar is pretty certain there is nothing anyone can do about bring back those whose soul is devoured by Ainz's scythe. Taylar begins pointing at the 3 bodies in the order they suggested earlier. Ainz wanted to know the difference between the 3 since people can turn to ash by being raised from Tier 5 raised dead. Raised dead resurrection, true resurrection. So raised dead you lose 10 levels, resurrection you lose 5 levels, and true resurrection you lose no levels. It seems Zembaru will need rest before he can function properly. Shasuria just seems a little groggy, and Zariusu looks completely fine, like he could start combat right now. Very good to know, especially since I didn't have to try this experiment on someone from Nazarick. Ainz thinks to himself, while Taylar is raising the 3 lizard men. I am leaving 100 of my undead for the security of your village. This wand will control them, and they will not attack unless ordered to or to defend themselves. Inform the rest of your lizard men what is to come in the future. Ainz says and tosses the wand to Crush. Greater Gate. Rabido casts the Tier 10 transportation spell so the army can march through in formation. Ainz and company follow right behind and head back to Nazarick, having accomplished their goal with the lizardmen. Riestei's capital, Valencia Palace. The members of Blue Rose were walking through the palace on their way to Princess Renner's room. Normally, Lockuse and anyone visiting the princess would be dressed up as Lockuse was for breakfast this morning with the princes, but Blue Rose had been called for just after lunch to come as soon as possible. So they were all on their way to meet the princess full equipped for battle minus the weapons. Lockuse informed the maid at the door who they were, and she quickly knocked on the door and introduced them to the princess. When Lockuse entered, she saw Princess Renner getting up to greet them, and her bodyguard, climbed standing behind her. Thank you for coming so quickly, Lockuse. Renner says to her. It is no problem. Why did you need to see us so soon? We just discussed our plans this morning, and I only just got done filling everyone else in on it. Lockuse says to her. That is why it is urgent. We have to change our plans and go after them tonight. Renner says to the stunned Lockuse. Taking down 8 fingers was going to be difficult to begin with, but having to change plans at the last minute made it near impossible. Locus couldn't see how this would get pulled off so quickly. I don't mean to sound like a defeatist, but I think that might be impossible. Locus tells Renner. You're right. Taking down all 8 branches will be impossible having to attack tonight. However, we're going to take out their 3 most important branches tonight. If we can succeed, I believe it will be near impossible for them to recover. If they do recover, it will likely take them years to do so. Renner tells them, while I'm confident in my roses, how are we supposed to take down 3 locations with just the 5 of us? Locus asks, I have some help for you. Some of it is already here and ready to go, and hopefully, the Marquis will come through with him getting you another adamantite adventurer team to help you with your end. Renner tells them, I thought Red Drop was in the Draconic Kingdom. How would they get here by tonight? Gagarin says, you guys don't know that there is a 3rd adamantite adventurer team in the kingdom now. Renner asks, we actually haven't been to the guild in a few days, so if it happened recently we wouldn't have heard about it. Evil Eye says, they call themselves the Forsaken. Tia and Tina say at the same time. Everyone in the room turns their heads towards the twin ninjas.
What?
I mean ninjas always gather intelligence.
Tia says.
So, what do you know about this new team, and why didn't you say something earlier? Locus asks. No one asked, and it never came up. Tina just shrugs. As far as what I know, they were the ones who handled the graveyard incident in Irantal. From what I gathered, the leader of their group Mammon subjugated the wise king of the forest. They helped defend Karn village from an army of demi-humans, and recently returned with fully intact corpses of a cockatrice, monstrous centipede, and a greater basilisk. I also heard the 2 casters in their group can cast Tier 4 magic. They recently went to the Empire and were trying to be recruited by Flood and Paradine to move to the Empire and have their arcane caster become his apprentice. Some also say they were adventurers where they came from, but no one knows what country they are from. When they first arrived in Irantal, their female warrior Ariel threw a man twice her size across and he was a bag of feathers. Tia adds after her sister is done. That is a lot to take in at once. Is that everything? Locus asks. Well, not really. We still haven't told you all the names, their appearance, etc., but those are the main points.
Tina says.
We can talk about all that later. What help do you have that is already here? Locus asks Renner. Marquis Raven has agreed to lend his group of ex-adventurers to raid the slave trading area for us. Also, the warrior Captain Gazef Stronov and his band of mercenaries have agreed to raid the drug warehouse for us. I believe they should be able to handle those 2 areas for us with little problem. Renner says, I certainly agree that they can handle those tasks, but that leaves the obvious question. What are we supposed to do? Locus asks her. The reason we have to do this tonight is that something has changed 8-Finger's schedule. I'm not sure what it was, but we might have got lucky or very unlucky depending on your view. Blue Rose will have the hardest job of all, which is why we are trying to get your more help of your level. Something has caused the members of 6 Arms to gather in one location. We need you to take out the 6 Arms if you can. Obviously alive if possible, but don't put your lives in danger to capture them. Renner says to them. Most of them, if not all of them, are the equivalent of an adamantite-ranked adventurer, and you want us to take them on 6 versus 5. Evil Eye says, from what I've heard, only 3 of them are actually around adamantite level. The rest of them should be no problem for you, but that is why we are trying to get that other team here, so it won't be a problem at all. I wish we had the time to wait for them to arrive, but this might be our only chance to take out 8 fingers. Unless we want to wait years for another opportunity like this to arise. Getting intel this good isn't easy to come by. Renner says, well, it is, but no one needs to know about the shadow demons Lord Demiurge allowed me to use. Even my friend Locus, an adamantite-level cleric, can't sense the one only a few feet from her. The Golden Princess thinks to herself. What time do you expect them to arrive? Should I plan on not having their help? Locus asks. The Marquis sent for them on floating boards, so they will arrive as soon as possible. I believe they should arrive not long after you reach your destination, but just plan as though you won't have their assistance, just in case. Renner says to her, taking on all of 6 arms at once will be tricky, but I think we can handle it. Now, here is what we're going to do. Locke says, 6 Arms Fortress. Seabass was almost at the address he was told to come to hand over Tswer. Tswer was obviously not with him. Neither he nor either of the supreme beings intended on giving these wretches anything but pain and death. He looked around and didn't see anyone else near, so he approached the gate. He saw a man walking towards the gate right as he reached it. You're right on time.
Come this way, he says.
Seabass wishes he could just bash this fool's head in and kill everyone in this place. Unfortunately for Seabass, he was given strict orders to only kill the members of 6 Arms and leave the rest for Shaltir, who would take his place once the 6 Arms were dealt with. He could at least feel good knowing he took out the head of a scum who preyed on the innocent and weak. This old man started all this trouble? This hardly seems worth getting all of us involved in his death. Momvis says to everyone, we are all here to put on a show and let everyone know what happens when you mess with 8 fingers, so shut your trap, 1,000 kills.
Zero says to him,
I do like putting on a good show, but I doubt this old man will last long enough for me to get a turn. Edstrom says, so, where is the girl, old man? You took our property and we want it back.
Zero says to him,
oh no, you misunderstand the reason for my visit. I am not here to hand over Tswer. I am here to punish you for damaging the property of the supreme beings. Seabass tells him. Everyone in the place starts laughing at Seabass. At least they got a good laugh before the slaughter begins. You couldn't last 10 seconds with me, let alone anyone else here. How are you going to punish anyone, old man? Zero says arrogantly. Luckily for you and the other members of 6 Arms, your deaths will be swift since I'm on a timetable. Your guests and friends, however. Seabass motions to the others present. Their fates will be much more horrifying, so you should be glad. Enough, old man. I'll end you right here.
Come panther, come falcon.
Zero starts. Oh, you need to power up. I suppose I can wait for that.
Seabass says.
Zero continues calling his shamanic tattoos, gathering all his power into his most powerful martial arts attack. What pathetic undead are you supposed to be? Seabass asks the obvious undead caster. Davernok, the undead king, and when he finishes you, I'll have fun making your corpse undead, he replies. Undead king? That title is far beyond your reach. Seabass says as Zero finishes his power-up. Single strike kill. Zero hits him with all the force he can possibly muster. He normally would never go to these lengths to kill anyone, let alone some random old man, but this old man had it coming, running his mouth like that. The impact is so great, a dust cloud forms in the aftermath of him making contact with Seabass. Zero has a huge grin on his face until the cloud clears and Seabass is standing there, untouched and unmoved. He quickly gets a look of complete confusion right before Seabass contacts the front of his face and completely caves it in, killing him instantly. Before anyone can react to what just happened, Seabass sends a roundhouse kick to the face of the undead king, and his head explodes in a cloud of red mist. He quickly kept his momentum going with a right cross to Mombist and spinning heel kick to the head of Pashurian, both of them losing their heads instantly. Edstrom finally realized what just happened, only to be hit in the temple with an elbow. Everything in her skull sprang out the left side right onto Succulent's face before Seabass uppercut his head off with his left fist. Having killed all of 6 Arms in 3 seconds and not getting any blood on himself made Seabass beam with a little pride. The hysterical screams of the patrons brought him out of his revelry quicker than he wanted. It ended up being good timing as a gate opened behind him and Shelter along with 6 vampire brides arrived to take his place. A/N. Vampire brides are Clementine and the Pleiades with data crystals that change their appearance minus Narbral Gamma. My part is done. I shall take the bodies back to Nazarick as instructed by Lord Ainz.
Seabass says to Shaltir.
Enjoy yourself, Seabass, I know I will. Shaltir says with a sadistic smile, looking at all the fresh meat she gets to play with. Vampire brides. She turns to them, have fun. Shaltir and the vampire brides disappear to everyone around, but that is because the only ones that might be capable of detecting their speed were killed by Seabass. Blood started spraying, heads were rolling on the ground, limbs were being sliced off, and screams of pain and agony tore through the fortress inside the capital. In less than 3 minutes, every person who came to watch the show were lying in pieces, in pools of their own fluids. I do enjoy mindless slaughter. Shaltir grins wickedly, now, to wait for our guests to arrive and give them a proper welcome. Outside Six Arms Fortress 15 minutes after Shaltir arrived. Blue Rose arrived at their designated location a couple minutes before the attack was to begin. Tia and Tina quickly dashed off into the shadows to scout the perimeter. They returned a minute later with some rather confusing intel for Locke's. There is no perimeter security or guards at the gate, evil boss. Tia says to Locke's. I can't imagine Six Arms being so arrogant they wouldn't have perimeter security. I wonder if Renner's intel was incorrect. Locke's says. Should we scout the inside, evil boss? Tina asks her. No, let's go in together. I have a bad feeling about this. Tia, pick the lock, everyone else, usual formation. Locke's says, and draws her sword. Tia picks the lock and the rest of Blue Rose quietly makes their way into the fortress. All the torches down the long pathway seem to have been put out, which is greatly aiding in their stealth. They all see a large illuminated area a couple 100 feet in front of them. Once it comes into view, they see absolutely nothing as they expected. The area is just as it was described to them, but instead of the members of Six Arms being present, it looks like a small girl in a white lace dress, white lace gloves, white lace hat, and a white veil covering her face. Blue Rose doesn't keep up much on fashion with the exception of Locke's, but it looks like this little girl is wearing the most expensive wedding outfit they had ever seen. Not only was she completely out of place, but the amount of blood in the area was enough to almost make even the veteran adventurers from Blue Rose gag. The little girl turned to them when they were still a few 100 feet away and addressed them like they were standing in a well-lit room and not hiding in the shadows. More guests. What brings you to this lovely feast tonight? Shaltir asks in their direction. We could ask you the same, little girl. What are you doing in a place like this? Locke's asks. Oh, well, you see, they messed with something they don't understand. I was just here having a little fun, pretty girl, hee. Shaltir giggles at the end towards Locke's.
Who is they?
You mean Six Arms? Gagrin asks. That might be their name. Let me ask my newest vampire bride. Clementine, come here, dear. Shaltir says. Everyone in Blue Rose immediately gets into a fighting stance. They all know exactly who Clementine is. She is wanted for countless murders of fellow adventurers. They all see someone who certainly looks like Clementine exit the building along with 5 other similar-looking women. They all had a distinct look to their faces, but other than that, all looked the same. Clementine makes her way up to Shaltir and bows her head. Yes, mistress? Clementine asks. Is some group called Six Arms responsible for this? Shaltir asks, already knowing the answer.
No, mistress.
Zuranon is the group that tried to control you, mistress. Clementine answers like she is supposed to. Well, there you go, no Six Arms here, ladies. Although, 3 of you would make very pretty vampire brides. What do you say, Locke's? Tia? Tina? Would you like to serve me for eternity? I promise it will be a very pleasurable experience, Shaltir asks them with a seductive tone to her voice. How do you know our names, vampire? Locke's asks. I am to a vampire what a skeleton is to an elder lich pretty girl, so address me appropriately. As far as your names go, My darling little Clementine filled me in on all the pretty girls in this kingdom I can have as my brides. Shaltir says, We won't let you have anyone from this kingdom to do with as you wish, vampire. Lockhughes says to Shaltir, I am Countess Elizabeth Bathory de Ext, but you may call me the Blood Countess. Just because you are going to die doesn't mean we can't keep up the proper etiquette here. If any of you survive, I'm sure your good friend Evil Eye can tell you all about true vampires. Shaltir says and grins. Enough talk.
Prepare to die Monster.
Lockhughes yells. Oh, I think you misunderstand. Shaltir says then disappears from sight. Lockhughes feels a gust of wind pass her right side and turns her head to see what the hell it was. As soon as she turns her head, she feels a gust of wind pass her left side. When she turns back towards the front, the Blood Countess is standing back in her position and looks like she is licking two of her fingers. The pretty ones always taste better. That big one you got tastes like shit. Shaltir says. Lockhughes turns to look at Gagarin, and she has a blank look on her face. Suddenly, her head slides right off her shoulders and her body falls to the ground. Before Lockhughes can scream, she hears two thumps from behind her. She turns around and sees Tina's head laying on the ground next to her crumpled body. We need to leave. Both of you to me. Evil Eye screams. Oh, go ahead. I want you to see how futile your attempts to flee will be. Shaltir says. WW, what the hell? I can't teleport us out of here. Evil Eye says to Lockhughes and Tia when they get to her. Dimensional lock will do that to you. Hee hee, now that you understand your fate. Time to end this, my pretty roses, Shaltir says. Shaltir and her vampire brides take their positions to play with the remaining members of Blue Rose. The three remaining members of Blue Rose take up defensive stances and are looking around for a way out of this death trap. Right before Shaltir and her brides charge, something lands between the Blood Countess and Blue Rose. It kicks up an enormous dust cloud that no one can see through. When the dust clears, there are two warriors standing in front of Blue Rose, and they see two more people slowly descend to stand next to the warriors. Looks like we aren't too late, Mammon says and looks to the remaining members of Blue Rose. Blue Rose, we are the Adamantite Adventurer Team, the Forsaken. We will distract them while you get your sisters and escape. Oh, mighty Lord Mammon. Fancy meeting you here after all this time. Shaltir says to him. You. Mammon points his great sword right at her. I will get my revenge on you for what you did, he yells to sell his point. Oh, poor Mammon. You should have heard your people screaming for you to come to save them. It was delightful to hear, Shaltir says to him. Enough talk, monster.
Prepare to die.
Mammon says and charges right at Shaltir while Ariel, Bella, and Nabe engage the vampire brides. Lockhughes and Evil Eye were both about to scream for them to run away because they stood no chance against such enemies, but before they could, they saw, even if they could barely follow the movements, Mammon trading blows with the Blood Countess, like they were of similar power levels. Even the other three members of his team were each engaging two vampire brides at once and holding their own. Mammon and the Blood Countess were so evenly matched that they were having conversation in the midst of their melee. Oh, Lord Mammon, you certainly have gotten stronger. Why don't you just leave those three with you and join me? I'm sure we would have much more fun together, Shaltir grins. Lockhughes isn't certain, but she thinks she just felt a god's level of killing intent come from the warrior in the Forsaken known as Ariel towards the vampire Mammon is fighting. Shaltir thinks she's funny going off script like that. I should teach her a lesson and let my axe slip through her neck. Albedo thinks after hearing Shaltir. Why did you come here, Liz? Mammon says. Don't you call me that. Your favorite death cult tried to control me again. I am here for the idol, and I will leave. As Shaltir finishes saying that, each side jumps back into formations again. The Forsaken blocking Blue Rose from attack and Shaltir in front of her vampire brides. You have 4 hours to return my idol to the town square, or I will do to this country what I did to your last one. Bye-bye, Mr. Mammon, Shelter says, and a circle appears around her, and the vampire bride's covered in arcane runes. Shit. Teleportation magic. Mammon says and lunges forward, but it is too late, and the Blood Countess and her vampire brides disappear from sight. Mammon turns around and walks up to Blue Rose. You are Lady Lockhews, correct? I am Mammon, leader of the Forsaken. I'm sorry we didn't get here in time to save your friends. Do you need help bringing them back? He asks Lockhews. And no, I can cast Tier 5 Raise Dead. Wait, does that mean your healer can cast Tier 5 magic? Lockhews asks Mammon. Oh, no she cannot. She can only cast up to Tier 4, but we have a wand from our home that we salvaged that has 4 charges of Raise Dead, and she can use the wand. I was unaware you could cast Tier 5 magic. That is quite impressive, he says to her. Thank you. It seems like you knew that monster. How is that possible? Lockhews asks him. That is a long story, and I believe one the Marquis and Princess would probably also like to hear, so why don't we talk about it back at the palace? He says. Let me just get my other team members, and we will follow you, Lockhews says. Mr. Mammon, I think you will want to see this. Nabe says to him and points towards the north. What the hell is that? Evil Eye says. The blood fountain, he says. What's the blood fountain? Lockhews asks. Notice anything different around you? Mammon asks. Everyone looks around, and Bella points it out. All the blood is gone from here, she says. They all look around and see it is true. All the blood that was filling the area is completely gone, and a giant, swirling wall of blood was encasing part of the city. Anyone with a good guess would know it was centered on the town square where the Blood Countess told them to deliver her idol. Let's head back to the palace. We only have 4 hours. Mammon says. Nazarick, throne room, right after conquering the lizard men. Normally, for an audience in the throne room, there would be scores of various beings, but this particular audience was only with the rulers of Nazarick, Yuri Alpha, and the 3 maids assigned to the rulers of Nazarick for the day. The only other beings present were currently kneeling at the base of the throne, getting ready to head out into the world again. Swords of Darkness, it has been a while since I have seen you in those old clothes of yours. Ainz says to them. Yes, Lord Ainz. I have grown rather fond of the dresses so graciously given to me by Lady Taylar. Ninya replies. You will only need to wear those old rags for 2 days, then you can get properly dressed again, little angel. Taylar says to Ninya, which always makes her blush slightly at the name Lady Taylar has given her. You remember the plan we talked about, correct? Albedo asks. Yes, Lady Albedo. We have all remembered what you said. We will not fail you, I promise, my queen. Ninya says. Good. Mare spent a great deal of time creating that fake dungeon. Give the guards or adventurers guild good enough directions to find it, but be vague enough that they have to search a little for it. We added old empty chests to account for your gear when you get back to town and equip it. I look forward to seeing you at the Adventurers Guild again, Swords of Darkness. Ainz says and dismisses them. You think they will be fine all the way over there as their first assignment? Taylar asks. It's not like they will be there long. Just long enough to spread the story and rest. Then they will be headed back to Irantal. If you are that worried, I can have Oriel keep an eye on them after she teleports them. Ainz says to Taylar. No, they will be fine, but thank you. Taylar says. All right, let's get ready to head back to Irantal. Ainz says to them. The Northern Holy Kingdom, City of Prart, main gate. Gate duty in the city of Prart was usually a dull affair for everyone. They were far enough away from the capital that it was near impossible for a demi-human to be a threat even if they were in the Northern Holy Kingdom. The only real worry was the occasional thief band or smuggler. It was a sought-after position because of how dull it was. You didn't have to worry about battling much at all, the pay was good, and you didn't have to worry about being called to war. However, you still have to be vigilant. If you let a thief or smuggler through, even if they had just fooled you to get in, you would be replaced quickly. So while these guards were capable fighters, they all would have made excellent scouts because of how keen their eyes were. This evening there was no traffic left entering the city. The sun had gone down a couple of hours ago, and people didn't tend to travel the roads at night. There wasn't a lot of threat, but monsters still existed, so people were cautious. The two guards outside the gate who looked for coming travelers were having a conversation. I love nights like tonight. No more people to inspect, and just a few hours until we are replaced, one guard says to the other. I agree, but don't let your guard down. This is the easiest position I've ever had in the military, and I don't plan on losing it because you're dreaming of getting off in a few hours. The other guard says to him. You've got nothing to worry about. I love this job. I don't plan on giving it up ever. He replies to him. I think I see something in the forest, the first guard says to the other. The second guard turns his attention to the forest where the other guard is pointing. It appears he was correct. It looks like a few figures are running towards the city. He can't really make out what it is, but pulls out his weapon and calls out to the gate above him just to make sure everyone is ready. Unidentified beings running towards the city. Everyone be ready. After a few minutes, they all see 4 people come running out of the woods. It looks to be 3 men and a woman. Their appearance seems to be that of adventurers, but they look to be in rough shape. All of their armor is torn and ripped, and you can see spots of dried blood where the armor is damaged. When they see the gate, their eyes go wide, and they sprint towards the front gate. Halt! The guard yells as they get close. The 4 adventurers stop and look up at the man. He can plainly see now it is definitely 3 men and a woman. Even in her rough shape, he can tell the woman is beautiful. The ripped robes, dried blood, and disheveled hair don't hide her good looks at all. If he is being honest, even the 3 men are pretty good looking. He knows a good amount of the adventurers in this city, though, and doesn't remember ever seeing them. He certainly wouldn't forget that woman even if he would not remember the 3 with her. My name is Ninya. WWE are the S Swords of Darkness, Silver Adventurer Team FF from Irantal. Ninya pulls her plate off her neck and holds it out for someone to come and take. She did a pretty good job of sounding injured. To be fair, they did get a good beating and made to use all their MP when they left Nazareth. So it wasn't very hard to sound hurt. Most of them really were injured. The guard takes her guild plate and examines it. It certainly was a silver plate from the Adventurers Guild in the Riestai's kingdom. There were adventure guilds in just about every major human city. The only exception would be the Empire because their army dealt with a lot of their monster problems, so there weren't many guilds left in the Empire. You are pretty far away from Irantal. How did you get here? We were kidnapped. I don't mean to sound disrespectful, BB. Could we sit somewhere? And could you call someone from the GG Guild here? It is a long story I'd rather not repeat. Do you mind, if I sit? I'm spent. Ninya didn't actually wait for an okay. She just plopped down on the ground exhausted. Come inside the guard tower and have a seat. We will wait for someone from the guild in there, the guard said and moved to help Ninya up. She thanked him, and they headed inside the tower to wait for someone from the guild to arrive. The guards gave them all some water and bread. It was nice of them, but after eating in Nazareth, the bread tasted like crap, and even the water tasted funny. They drank and ate without complaint, though. It wouldn't do any good if they did. After about 15 minutes, someone from the guild had arrived. I am Guild Master Olin from the Prard Adventurers Guild. Are you truly the Swords of Darkness? The man asked. The Guild Master? I'm surprised you came, Guild Master Olin. Surely a silver-ranked adventurer team doesn't warrant the Guild Master coming to see us. Ninya says. On the contrary, we have been looking for your team for quite some time. The guild in Irantal put out a notice that you had been kidnapped by a cult, the Guild Master said. We were taken in the Barrier's alchemy shop in Irantal by a group known as Zuranon. When we woke up, we were all in cells. A few days ago, something happened, and the cult members who were with us were somehow killed. Our cell's doors were blown open by some incredible power. Honestly,
It was terrifying.
we hid in our cells until we thought it was clear. When we came out, All the cult members were in pieces, laying in their own blood around some strange symbol carved into the ground. We had to fight our way out through some monsters that were there, and we came out in a forest. We picked a direction and started running, hoping to come across someone when we stumbled on the front gate of the city. Do you know if Infiria was taken too? He was with us when we were attacked. Ninya tells them. Infiria Berar was rescued by the adventurer team The Forsaken not long after you were taken. They tried to use him for some necromantic ritual, but they were stopped. It sounds like you had quite the ordeal. Do you remember where the place they were keeping you was? The guildmaster asked. I couldn't tell you the exact location because we were just running for our lives, but I think I can get you in the general area of the cave. Is that all right, guildmaster? Ninya says. That would be a great help, Ninya. The guildmaster turns towards the guards. I will vouch for them if they have not been permitted to enter yet. I would like to get them to the guild, so they can rest. It looks like they need it. No need, guildmaster. They are already clear to enter the city. The guard turns towards Ninya. It is good to hear you were able to escape the clutches of that cult lady, Ninya. Welcome to Prart. The guard finishes with a smile. I'm just a commoner. No need for the lady, but thank you. Ninya says, and gets up to follow the guildmaster. Once they were a little bit farther from the guard station, Lukrut said to Ninya, I know you have pretended to be a boy for a while now, but you can't seriously be that dense, Ninya. What are you talking about, Lukrut? Ninya replies. Did you not notice that guard hitting on you? He laughs. He was just being nice because of what we went through. Look at me. She moves her hands up and down as if to say, look at how dirty I am. No one would hit on someone in this state. My hair looks like a bird's nest. I'm covered in dirt and blood, and I smell. She looked at them as if to say, see dummies, but instead what she saw was them laughing at her. What? All three got out statements as they fought through the laughter. First, you never, cared about your hair, before. Lukrut says. Second, since when do you care about, your clothes? Peter says. And why, do you think, you smell? Dine finishes. Grrrr. I hate you guys right now. Ninya says to them. They finally calm down when they reach the Adventurers Guild in Prart. The guild master shows them where they can rest, then leaves to inform the guild in Irantal that the swords of darkness have been found. All joking aside, Ninya, are you going to ask that guard out? Lukrut asks. Shut up, Lukrut. We had this conversation already. Ninya replies. We were just having fun before. But seriously, Lukrut is cut off by Peter. Lukrut, stop now. Peter just sighs. Ninya, I'm going to say this to you because I know hearing it from Lukrut will come out wrong. He was right. I can't believe I said that that guard was hitting on you. I'm not saying what this idiot is that you need to ask him out, but you have to realize by now that you, how do I say this? Out with it already, Peter. Ninya damn, Near shouts. You are quite beautiful, Ninya. Even looking like that. He points at her. I'm not trying to hit on you or anything that would be weird, but once we clean up and you put on the dress you've been wearing, well, I'm just trying to prepare you for what is about to happen. Peter finishes. What are you talking about? The last two words were whispered and barely audible as she processed what Peter just said. But in Nazarick, it was Dine who interrupted this time. 1. Nazarick is a nonsensical place, but even at that, Ninya, you look better than most of them do. We just think you should prepare yourself for the attention you are going to draw because you don't seem to believe it yourself. She looked at them and realized they were being completely serious. After spending all that time around Narbrel, Lupus Regina, Lady Albedo, and Lady Taylar, it had kind of numbed her sense of beauty a little, it seems. She wasn't quite sure she wanted that kind of attention, but it was a little late for that now. Maybe Lady Taylar could help her figure out how to avoid them. She seemed to be good at ignoring any man who wasn't Lord Ainz. Well, I'm going to my room to clean up and change. You guys going to do the same? Ninya asks. Already enjoying the perks of being a pretty girl with your own room. Lukrut jokes and Ninya just rolls her eyes. That sounds good. Want to meet us downstairs in 30 minutes? Peter asks Ninya. I'd rather walk down with you guys. Mind if I meet you back here in 30 minutes? Ninya asks Peter back. That's fine with me. See you in 30 minutes. Peter says to her. Ninya leaves for her room while the three of them get themselves cleaned up. It doesn't take them long to clean themselves. It wasn't like there was a shower here like there was in Nazareth. It was just a basin with some water in it in their rooms and some towels to wipe and dry off with. Once they were satisfied with their cleanliness, they started putting on their new gear. Well, new would mean they never wore them, but they had plenty of times. It was the first time they wore it outside of Nazareth. They all still laugh at how they reacted to getting such gear thinking they were being given relics from Nazareth. Ninya's reaction was especially funny now when they look back. When Lady Taylar pulled out her dresses that looked exactly like her own, Ninya almost fainted. It wasn't until Lady Taylar explained the different layers of embroidery and told her to inspect the gear with Detect Magic that she saw the vast difference in their magical power. To Lord Ainz, Lady Taylar, and Lady Albedo, what the Swords of Darkness were currently wearing was just one step above a towel. To the Swords of Darkness, on the other hand, their new gear was 10 times more powerful than what they had on before. None of them had any magic items whatsoever beforehand. Even their weapons were only masterwork quality, and those cost them an arm and a leg. Now, there wasn't a single piece of gear they had on that wasn't magical in some way. They were handed this gear like they were doing them a favor by taking it because it was trash to them. It had only taken the three of them about 20 minutes to get ready, and now they were just waiting for Ninya to come back. She would not need as long to get dressed as them, but probably longer to get cleaned up. The dresses given to her by Lady Taylar were her new armor. They had the same defensive power as Lukrut's leather armor and increased her casting abilities along with experience gain. It sounded like madness when they heard that dress could stop a sword if not swung by someone skilled with a blade. When they saw the demonstration that it was indeed true, they couldn't believe their eyes. It also made them feel better knowing that, even if she didn't look like it, Ninya had good armor on her at all times. So, where do you guys want to go tonight? We will only be here for one night, so we might as well make the most of it. Lukrut announces. Not really sure. I guess we can decide that when Ninya gets here. Peter tells him. Fine with me. With Ninya with us, we won't have trouble getting in anywhere. Lukrut excitedly says. Please tell me you aren't going to be hitting on her all night, Lukrut. Dine asks. Nope. I already figured out she isn't interested in any of that yet. No point in trying, but I've been cooped up in Nazareth for what seems like forever. I need to go have some fun already, he tells them. Just don't go too overboard. We need to leave tomorrow, and we can't be drawing a ton of attention to ourselves just yet. Peter warns Lukrut. PSSSSH. If you don't want us to draw attention to ourselves, you should have Ninya stay in her room until we leave. He laughs. I know, but I want her to have fun. I have never seen her this happy before. She has her sister back, a place she feels she can call home, friends who aren't us, and is finally growing as a caster at a rate she only dreamed of. Just keep the creepers away from her, so she can have a good time too. Peter tells both of them. I doubt you have to worry about Ninya, Peter. You saw her self-defense training yourself. I'm sure she can handle any random creep, but we will make sure she is safe too. Dine says. Gods, you got that right. I'll never forget Ninya and Lady Albedo's self-defense training as long as I live. Lukrut says. Would that be because of the sight of the two of them throwing each other around, or because Lady Albedo almost killed you with her first toss to send you a message? Peter laughs at him. Hey, I get it, there was no need for that. Lord, Ainz only. I know, Lukrut says to them. Right as the conversation was dying down, there was a knock at the door. Yes, Peter asks. It's Ninya. Can I come in? Yeah, it's open, he tells her. Ninya opened the door and stepped inside to see if they were ready to go. Once she stepped inside, she closed the door behind her and turned to see if everyone was ready. What she was met with was 3 open mouths and silence. Ninya was wearing a very form-fitting black dress. It was much more form-fitting than the dresses she normally wore. The ones given to her by Lady Taylar were definitely form-fitting, but in a comfortable way that highlighted her curves, but left some to the imagination. What Ninya was wearing right now was leaving almost nothing to the imagination. Her dress was made of black fabric, that unlike the normal fabric of her dresses that hugged her curves, this fabric seemed to stretch over every curve of her body to reveal her entire perfect form. It had long black sleeves that reached all the way to her wrists and covered up every inch of her upper body. The only part that wasn't completely black on top was the jewel-embroidered design that pointed to where her cleavage would be if there was anything revealed up top. Luckily for the rest of their sanity, her upper half was completely covered. The problem was below that. From just a few inches below her breasts to the top of her hips were strips of cloth crisscrossed like you see people tie their shoelaces. The reason they use shoelaces as an example is because the strips were no thicker than a shoelace, and there were only maybe 30 places they crisscrossed, which meant that Ninya's entire midsection from below her breasts to the top of her waist was basically covered by nothing. The bottom half was covered as well, but it didn't help make her look any less sexy. It was the same stretching fabric that the upper portion was made of and hugged the curves of her hips like they were holding on for dear life. The dress only came down to just above mid-thigh and showed off an incredible amount of leg even compared to what she normally did. Her blonde hair was clean and straight. She was wearing a little lip gloss and even had on some small heels. They were suddenly expecting her to grow white wings and for her eyes to turn green. She looked like a goddess, or Lady Taylar if she was about 5 years younger. Holy shit. You would think that comment would have been from Luckrut, but you would be wrong there. That just completely slipped out of Peter's mouth. He couldn't help himself. He had always seen Ninya like a brother than a sister, but looking at her right now, she looked like a woman a man would murder his whole family for if she agreed to marry said man. Guys? Ninya asks, kind of worried about the looks she is getting. What would make you think that dress would draw less attention? Peter manages to get out. I talked to Lady Taylar over message and told her what happened. She said whenever she wanted to ward off others from Lord Ainz and keep his attention on her, she would dress like this. Ninya tells them, I think either you misunderstood what she meant or she misunderstood what you were trying to do because that. Peter motions up and down at her outfit. Will draw 100 times more attention than your normal dress. Ninya, think about it. If that outfit keeps Lord Ain's attention from all other women, being surrounded by beautiful women every day, what do you think it would do to a normal male? Luckrut says to her. Ninya thinks back on her conversation with Lady Taylar and realizes where she made her mistake. A look of understanding dawns on her face, and she almost slaps herself for the confusion she had. Oh, gods. I told her it was nice to be complimented, but it was weird coming from so many people. She probably thought there was one person I wanted to get the attention of. Ninya says to them, That sounds about right. I won't tell you that you have to, but you might want to change into what you normally wear. You might start a riot if you go out looking like that. Peter says, I'll be right back. Ninya says, and runs out of the room. Peter looks at Dine and Luckrut. Neither of them has really said much. Dine hasn't spoken a word, and Luckrut barely got his thoughts out of his mouth. He just shakes his head as he looks at them. I know. Please don't say it. They all leave it at that, and wait for Ninya to come back. Riastai's capital, Valencia Palace. A lot of people were packed into this meeting room in the palace. It made the room feel small and confined. There were only 4 people standing against the wall who weren't really conversing in some manner. They stood off to the side, out of anyone's way, and didn't really attempt to talk to anyone. It didn't even look like they were talking to each other, just observing what was going on in the room. So, Ainz, do you see anyone who interests you in here? Taylar asks through message. Blue Rose is kind of intriguing, especially finding out one of their members is a vampire, but even that isn't really of interest to me. I was certainly surprised myself. I wouldn't mind getting my hands on Locky's. She can cast Tier 5 magic at age 19. I could train her well, I think. She might even get as powerful as that nut job Flutter. I am just here to observe Princess Renner. Demiurge saw fit to lend her shadow demons and said her intelligence almost rivals his and Albedo's. I want to see if that is true. I forgot about that until I sensed the four in the room. I can't believe none of these other adventurers or commanders can sense their presence. It just goes to show how weak they are compared to us. Has Mare completed his task yet? Yes, my love. He did a splendid job capturing the heads of 8 fingers with aura and the subordinates they were given. They are already back in Nazarick teaching them loyalty. Wouldn't it have been easier to just have Oriole forcefully teleport them? Yes, it certainly would have, but we need to let the Guardians and others do things for us also. If we ignore them, they will think we don't care about them. I suppose you are right. I just don't want them to be in any danger. We all know you care, love. We have backup plans for our backup plans when it comes to their safety, so just relax and let them handle it. They are both capable of doing it. I know. I'll try to remember how powerful those little dark elves are. Finally, the princess brought the meeting to order. Thank you all for gathering here during this disturbance. As you all know, we do not have a lot of time, so we will try to make this as quick as possible. She draws everyone's attention to the map. The wall of blood seems to be centered on the square where the vampire told us to deliver her idol. Is it really a wall of blood? One of the former adventurers called out from the crowd of people. Since a lot of people were forced to flee through the wall to escape the lesser vampires on the other side, we know it is blood. Everyone who went through was covered in it. Before you get worked up, we have them all quarantined and none are showing any signs of change after being cleaned of the
blood.
We will keep them there until we know for sure they aren't a threat to the people, the princess says. What idol is the vampire talking about? One of the commanders asks. It is a small statue, as far as we know. It is a statue of a goat-headed demon with 4 arms. Each of the arms holds a gem, and it looks to be made of bronze. It seems Evil Eye had decided to answer that question instead of the princess. If we have the help of so many, why don't we just go kill this vampire and be done with her? A commander says. Blue Rose fought this vampire. She killed the ninja Tina and the warrior Gagarin with a single attack. Evil Eye's statement caused an uproar amongst the rest of the people at the meeting. Everyone calm down, she hits her fist against the table. We have someone here who can fight against her as an equal, Evil Eye proclaims loudly. If Blue Rose can't even fight this monster, who could possibly fight it? An ex-adventurer shouts. We have the Raven Black hero, Lord Mammon. Evil Eye announces and moves her body to gesture to Mammon like she is revealing a prize on a game show. I think she means the Adamantite adventure team, the Forsaken. Ariel steps in front of him and says, Albedo already didn't like how this tiny, insignificant vampire had been doting all over her precious Lord Mamanga and would be damned if someone not from Nazarick and unworthy of her love's affection would get anywhere close to him. It seemed no matter the kind, vampires would always be a pain in the ass to Albedo when it came to her lord's love. Yes, sorry. I only saw Lord Mammon fighting her. My apologies. Evil Eye says, but never took her gaze off Ainz. It was unsettling to Ainz, like she was trying to figure out his deception. Taylar, Albedo, and Narbrol were not so dense and saw the sparkling heart eyes behind that mask that hide her vampiric nature. Ainz hoped the story he came up with for this occasion worked. Evil Eye already seemed suspicious of him, and the ninja seemed to trust no one. He put his hand on Albedo's shoulder to relax her overprotectiveness and stepped up to the table. The vampire goes by the name the Blood Countess. She used to be the daughter of a noble from my homeland. She was a smart girl, but no one realized how sadistic she was until it was too late. She found an ancient ritual to turn herself into a true ancestor vampire. That opening statement caused another uproar. How did she do it? Someone said from the crowd. We never found out the whole ritual, but I know she had to bathe in the blood of 100 women as part of it. Afterward, she was too powerful for anyone to stop, so they did the only thing they could, sealed her in her castle using ritual magic. If she was sealed inside, how did she get out? He waves his hand over the rest of his party. We're adventurers where we came from. We were off on a mission for our emperor when a death cult known as Zuranon tried to use the ritual magic sealing her in her castle to control her mind. It backfired on them, and all they did was release her from her prison. She went on a rampage and destroyed the entire empire. We only learned of this when we returned to the palace and found the emperor hung up and tortured. He only survived long enough to tell us who did it. If you were strong enough to fight against her, why didn't you stop her? Someone shouted from the crowd. It actually wasn't someone. It was Demiurge using his skill ventriloquism through one of the shadow demons, but this was pre-planned and going off well. Ainz releases enough killing intent in that direction to scare the daylights out of everyone, but not shit their pants. It took some practice to master letting out a specific amount of killing intent, but Seabass was a good teacher. I told you we were on a mission for our emperor. If I would have been there, I would have done anything to save my UNC emperor. Ainz shouts over there to sell the point. He was glad Evil Eye picked up on his intentional mistake. Didi, does that mean you are the rightful emperor, Lord Mammon? Evil Eye asked. No, just like Locky's did, becoming an adventurer means giving up your titles and rights that come along with it. Even if that wasn't the case, she destroyed the entire empire. There is no one left except us. Are you really the last 4 survivors of your empire? Locky's asks. Technically, yes. 5 of the Blood Countess's vampire brides are my uncle's wives, but they aren't exactly alive anymore. Ainz says. What is the name of your empire? Evil Eye asks. It doesn't exist anymore, so I don't see why that matters, but it was called the Sure Empire, he says to her. Even as long as Evil Eye has been alive or unalive, she had never heard of an empire called that and wondered where Mammon had come from. Now that we know a little about her, has anyone seen anything that could resemble the statue she is searching for? Princess Renner asks everyone. No one answered, so everyone figured it was a no. If that is the case, then we must hurry and find this idol. Lord Mammon, would she truly leave if we give her this idol? It is just Mammon, Your Highness, and I'm not sure. I believe she will, but she might just go to another country and cause destruction instead. It is worth a shot to try and find it. A fight against her might result in this entire city being destroyed even if we win. Ainz says to everyone. I would like to send out as many search parties as possible to look for this idol. Anyone will do, honestly, but we need to search the city as soon as possible. I would like the warrior captain, his men, Climb, and Marquis Raven's adventurers to secure the wall of blood in case any lesser vampires try to come through. I would also like the Forsaken and Blue Rose to remain here with me. If we cannot find this idol, we are going to have to fight this vampire. If that is the case, Mammon can take on the Blood Countess while the rest of his team and the remaining members of Blue Rose can each keep one of her vampire brides busy so Mammon doesn't have to worry about fighting anyone but the Blood Countess. Any objections? No one raised any, so the commanders split up their forces to maximize their chances of success, and everyone went to work. Arwinter, Baharuth Empire. Emperor Jerkniv was in his office going over the most mundane of reports. Normally, this would be the job of some lesser noble, but the bloody emperor had purged just about all of them by now. It certainly let his empire remain much more stable and prosperous, but it gave him a shitload more work to do that normally someone in his position didn't have to deal with. Lately, he felt like someone had been watching him. He wasn't quite sure why that was, but it felt that way to him. He didn't know why someone would observe him in this office, but it was the only place he really felt it. Not only were the anti-spying measures here put in by Flutter, but this wasn't a place many, if any, secrets were talked about. The most someone could learn from spying on him here would be grain reports, orphanages, and other civil works matters. Of course, if someone knew exactly when and where food was coming from, that could be a problem, but it wasn't a major concern. He never felt this presence at any of his military consoles, noble courts, or any other important events where sensitive information was shared. All those locations had the same amount of protection as this office, so it was strange to think someone was just watching him here. Once he finally shook those ridiculous thoughts from his mind, the person he was hoping to talk to walked in the office after a knock. "Hello, Jer. You look like you could use a break. Should I come back?" Flutter says to him. "Hello, Gramps. No, just doing work an emperor normally doesn't do. Purging all those nobles was good for the Empire, but not good for my workload," he tells Flutter. "It certainly is hard work, but look at how it flourishes now. No civil unrest, very little disagreement. You've done a great job, Jer." Flutter praises him. "There is still much to do, Gramps. So, why did you seek me out today?" the Emperor asks. "I have 2 things to report about what we are having the Count do," Flutter says. "Okay, what is it?" "First, all the invitations have arrived for the workers, and we will be getting answers back on who plans to join in 2 days. From what we have heard so far, it looks like most of them, if not all, will accept the mission." Flutter tells the Emperor. "That is good. It will increase our chances. You made sure this can't be traced back to us, right?" Jer asks. "Of course, it has all gone through the Count and can't be traced back here," he tells him. "Good. Now what is the second thing?" the Emperor asks. "I was able to talk with the adventurer team Your Majesty inquired about. I couldn't convince them to base here because they were still set on traveling, but I arranged it so they would accept to be the escort for the workers and guard the camp. That way, they could see the kind of jobs and pay to expect in the Empire. Also, you should know, when I finally got a chance to talk to them, they were already adamantite rank." Flutter finishes. "That was fast. Did you happen to find out how they jumped from mithril to adamantite so fast?" the Emperor asks. "According to the report I received from the Guild, they defended a village from a demi-human army and killed 3 orichalcum rank creatures in the span of just a few days." Flutter tells him. "Then pass on to your contact at the Guild to try and hire them for some other jobs when he can. Make their pay a little higher than they would get in the Riestai's kingdom to try and lure them here since they are undecided. If that doesn't work, figure out what they are looking for. Let me know when you hear back about the workers' Gramps," the Emperor tells Flutter. "Very well, Your Highness. I shall get to work then." Flutter replies. "You can't possibly have anything they want, my dearest Jer." Flutter thinks before he goes. Arwinter, Baharuth Empire, singing Apple Pavilion. The worker group, known as Foresight, had all finally made it back to the inn to discuss what they learned about the current contract they were debating on taking. Once the 4 of them had finally settled at the table, they began discussing what each of them had learned about the new contract. "Well, I confirmed the payment amount for the proposed contract. It is indeed as good as it sounds money-wise." Hekron, the leader of Foresight, tells the other 3. "We weren't able to confirm much more than you were apparently, Hekron. Archie, their arcane magic caster, says to them." It's as Archie says. "We also confirmed the payment and terms, but no one knows where this information came from. It is also a little worrying at the number of worker teams the Count is trying to hire for this expedition." Roberdick, the healer of their party, says. "The maximum duration is 3 days. The aim is mainly to explore the inside of the tomb. The important part to note is, it's suspected that we might encounter monsters during the investigation, but the type of monsters that we might encounter are currently unknown. From the look of things, it seems to be a simple investigation, but the tomb has apparently never been explored." Hekron says. At the mention that this place had never been explored before, everyone else's eyes went wide for a second. To be the first inside of an unexplored ruin could result in riches beyond any of their wildest dreams, especially considering the terms in the contract. This could be the last job they ever have to do if all goes well, but Imina had to bring something up before this discussion went farther. I know I stayed at the inn for the owner, but I learned something I think we need to discuss before we talk about this anymore. Imina, the team's half-elf scout, says and looks to Hecarin. Hecarin just sighs, wishing he didn't have to do this, but it had to be done. Archie, a man came and told us he needed to speak with you. He told us, and I quote, "Tell that brat from the Furt family the deadline is almost up." What is he talking about? Are you in some sort of trouble, Archie? Hecarin saw her usually expressionless face change at the mention of the deadline and knew Archie knew the man who came to the inn. Archie took a deep breath and knew she had no choice but to tell them, "I'm in debt." None of them were expecting her to say that. They had no ranks in their team, so they split every job equally. Foresight's members weren't rich by any means, but they had made more than enough money as workers to be well off. To think one of them would be in debt was just outrageous. "How much do you owe?" Roberdick asks her. 300 gold coins, was Archie's reply. Each of the other 3 members just glanced at each other. That was something no normal person could come across ever, and even they couldn't earn that in one job. After repairs, supplies, and other necessities for this job, they would end up with about 60 gold coins apiece. That was a very good sum for a job, and these didn't come along very often. It would take Archie a while to earn that much money. "How did you get that far in debt?" Hecarin asks her, and Archie has to sigh again and tell another secret she hadn't told anyone else yet. "I never told anyone this because my family considers it a huge disgrace, but..." She takes a deep breath and finally says, "My family's noble status was revoked by the bloody emperor. My parents refused to accept it and still live the same lifestyle even if they can't afford it. So they ended up borrowing money from some shady people, and I'm stuck with the debt because I'm the only one with an income." After they all heard this, they all gave pretty much the same type of comment. They wanted to know if her parents needed a good talking to from them, but then Archie dropped another bomb on them. "You have sisters?" They all say, and Archie just nods her head before she answers. "Yes, I plan on taking them from here to get them away from my parents once I pay off this debt," she tells them. "Okay, well, that changes things a little bit, but you have to understand we can't include you on the vote for this job. You understand why, right?" Hecarin asks her. "Yes, I need money, so my vote would be compromised. Honestly, I thought you would kick me off the team." Archie tells him, "You are Foresight's magic caster, Archie. We would never just push you away. I just wish you would have told us sooner. We probably could have helped you." Roberdick says to her. "All right, now we decide. Roberdick, do you want to accept or not?" Hecarin asks him. "I'm in," he says. "Imina?" "This is the kind of job I've waited for my whole life." "I'm definitely in," she replies. "All right, then it is." Archie cuts off Hecarin. "Guys, if you're just doing this for my sake, I can make the money somewhere else." As Imina said, Archie, this is the chance of a lifetime. We might even be able to retire after this one, if all goes well. Don't worry, we want to do this. Let's go let them know we are going to accept. Hecarin says to her. All across the empire, there were numerous worker groups talking about accepting the same exact contract Foresight had just agreed to accept. They all had seen this pretty much the same way, the chance of a lifetime to explore an unknown tomb that could possibly hold untold riches from before the demon gods rampaged across the world. In all the discussion that was had on the subject by all the workers, none of them had truly seen what kind of invitation this was. This tomb did contain untold riches, the likes of which this world couldn't even comprehend, but what this really was, well, it was an invitation to death. Riestei's capital, Valencia Palace. It had been about 3 hours since the Blood Countess had given them 4 hours to find the idol for her. All the reports that had come back so far said no one was having any luck finding it at all. When it looked like no one was going to have any luck, Princess Renner gathered Blue Rose and the Forsaken to go over the plan of attack for them. It hadn't taken much time to go over the plan. It was pretty straightforward. Everyone simply needed to buy time for Mammon to take out the Blood Countess. It was obviously going to much more dangerous than that, and a lot harder, but they all knew what they needed to do. After they finished talking about the strategy, each group went to a side of the room to talk amongst themselves. The Forsaken were off in the far side of the room from the princess and Blue Rose. They were obviously conversing based off the conversation everyone else could hear, but it was just a dummy conversation. Behind the multiple layers of anti-spying spells cast by Taylar, they were having a conversation about changing part of their plan after Taylar had made a suggestion to them. Are you sure it is worth the risk, Taylar? It seems like an unnecessary risk to take considering how many variables there are. I'm not sure even our luck stats will help swing something like that in our favor with so many potentially different outcomes. Ainz says to her. Yes, I think it is worth the risk. Taylar responds to him. Forgive me, Taylar, but I don't see any benefit at all to us. Albedo says to her. You may be correct, and we get nothing out of this Albedo, but you also have to look at the fact that it will not really hurt us in any way either. She responds to Albedo. I suppose you do have a point there. Ainz says.
What do you mean by that?
Albedo asks. Well, even if this goes as wrong as it possibly could, our plan still goes off without a hitch. It has no connection to Nazarick, and it won't affect us as an adamantite adventure team. So we really have nothing to lose. This might tip the scale toward me if it works. I'm not sure it will be possible any other way. Taylar tells her. If you really want to do this, I have no objections. Ainz says. What about you, Albedo? Taylar asks her. You do not need me to. Albedo is interrupted. Albedo, you know how this works by now. We do this together, all three of us. Not only that, you are the one who is handling this kingdom. You put this plan together with our input, and you will be dealing with them later on. If this will hinder your plans, I will not do it. So, I want your opinion. Taylar tells her. I honestly had no use for them, so it does not affect my plans whatsoever. I just simply can't see what use you would have for them, but I said the same thing about Enri Amat and Ninya, and both of them have been very useful. Albedo replies to her. All right then, I'll go ahead with it. Their reactions will tell me a lot, but I want to have a conversation and see how likely I am to succeed. If it doesn't seem like it will work, I'll just think of something else. Taylar tells them. Sounds good to me. While you are over there, can you try and keep Evil Eye from coming over here? She seems to be very suspicious of me. Ainz says to Taylar. What makes you think she is suspicious of you? Albedo asks. She has been lingering around me. It seems like she is trying to eavesdrop to learn something. She didn't seem to trust me at all when we first met. I'm not sure my story fooled her. She just tried even harder after that meeting to listen in on what I was saying. Ainz replies. You are kidding, right? That is why you think she is suspicious of you. Taylar asks. Of course. Why else would she be acting like that? Ainz says. Taylar simply can't hold it in anymore and just starts laughing hysterically at Ainz. She laughs so hard even Albedo joins in, and Narbrel even giggles a bit at Ainz. Ainz has no idea what the hell they are laughing at. Having the highest level adventurer they have come across be suspicious of him wasn't very funny. My God, you are still so dense. Taylar giggles again. She isn't suspicious of you. I'm pretty sure that little vampire is in love with you, she finishes. I'm not pretty sure, I'm positive. Albedo says. Vampires were always a pain in her ass when it came to Momonga. I think you two are just too overprotective of me. I haven't done anything that would make her feel that way. Ainz replies to their insane take on Evil Eye. You fought with a vampire that killed 2 of her team members in an instant on equal footing. That much power alone would be enough for most women. If that little vampire got to see the face that went along with that power, I'm sure her undead heart would start beating again. Taylar says and laughs again at the end. Even after being here and being with her and Albedo, Ainz still thought he was Suzuki Satoru too much. Even on Earth, he was good-looking and didn't see it himself. Taylar thought her and Albedo had finally made him realize he was the catch of a lifetime for any woman, but apparently, it only worked to a certain degree. Even if he was level 1, that face of his would have women throwing themselves at him, but he didn't seem to either A, believe it or B, see it himself. It is exactly as Taylar has said, my love. Albedo tells him. I don't think. Ainz is interrupted. I told you. The women of Nazareth don't all want you because you are their only option. It is because you are the best option any woman could have. One of these days you'll figure that out, Ainz. Send Shaltir and Yuri messages about the change. I'm going to drop the anti-spying spells and head over in case someone ventures over to have a chat with all of you. Taylar tells him and walks over towards where Blue Rose is talking with Princess Renner. Hello, Ms. Bella. What can we do for you? Princess Renner asks. Hello, Your Highness. Sorry for interrupting. I was just wondering how Tina and Gagrin were doing, Locuse. And it is Mrs., but please just call me Bella, Your Highness. Taylar says. Oh, I didn't realize. I apologize. Renner says. It is no problem, Your Highness. We are adventurers, so most people think the ring is just a magic item. To be fair, it is. She giggles at the end. Thank you for your concern, Bella. They are both resting right now. They will need to gain their strength back before they can fight again. Locuse tells her. So, the wand isn't any different from the spell. That is interesting. Taylar mutters to herself loud enough so they can hear. Have you used your wand already? Locuse asks. No, not me personally. I have seen it used by my master. She brought someone back with it. I was wondering if there was any difference in our spells, that is all. Taylar says. How could our spells be different? We are both priestesses, right? Locuse asks. Well, I know I possess a divine spell no other has, or at least I have seen. It is a simple tier 1 spell and very useful. One that every Miko has access to where I am from, but I've yet to see anyone but me cast it since coming here. That is why I was curious. Taylar says to her. What spell would that be, Bella? Locuse asks. Wall of protection from arrows. Being immune to a certain number of ranged attacks is fantastic for any caster, which is why I was curious no one else used it since I came to Ainz, she tells her. That is not a spell I have heard of before. What god do you serve that grants you spells like that? Locuse asks. Well, it isn't that simple, let's say. Taylar replies. I'm unsure what you mean by that, Bella. Locuse says a little confused. You seem like a good person, Locuse, but the last time I told a priest from here how I receive my spells, he called me a heretic and tried to get me thrown in prison. I'd rather not have that conversation again when we are about to enter battle together. Taylar tells her. Why? Do you get your spells from the undead or something? Locuse jokes with her. No, but you shouldn't judge undead as a whole. Taylar replies. What? Undead just want to kill the living. It is the reason for their existence. Locuse says adamantly. Taylar saw Evil Eye flinch at this, and that was exactly what she was going for with this conversation. While that is generally true, it is not always the case. Mamon's uncle had a council that advised him about decisions throughout the empire, and one of those council members was an elder lich. He didn't harbor any hatred for the living, she tells them. That is impossible. Locuse responds. It is very possible. I talked with him many times, and he never harmed me. He only used his necromancy when the situation called for it, she tells her. When could there possibly be a situation that calls for necromancy? She asks. It was the punishment for the 3 capital offenses in our country. If you were found guilty of treason, murder, or rape, you would be turned into an undead and made to serve to make up for your crimes, she tells them. That's. Locuse stutters. A great idea. Tia and Evil Eye say at the same time. Yeah, people didn't like the idea at first, but after they saw the benefits, no one opposed it. Well, I suppose I took up too much time talking, and it is pretty close to us having to leave. I am glad Tina and Gagarin are getting well. Hopefully, we can take down the Blood Countess and they can join you again soon. Taylar says.
Wait.
How do you get your spells? Lockuse asks. I don't think this is the time for such a debate, to be honest, Lockuse. I won't argue or call you a heretic. I just want to know. I won't ask questions, I promise, she tells her. Let me ask you something first then. You obviously don't like the undead. Tell me, how do you feel about angels? Taylar asks. They are the protectors of humankind from what I know, but I have never talked to one before. Lockuse answers. What do you base that on? She had to ask. Lockuse was sounding like a member of the slain theocracy at the moment, and it was making Taylar believe she might just want to rethink what she is doing. It is what we have been taught in the temple of the water god. Lockuse responds. Well, not totally hopeless, I suppose, if that is her response. Taylar thinks. You are aware that there are angels like the Angel of Destruction, Angel of Chaos, and the Angel of Decay. I doubt those angels have humanity's best interests in mind. Taylar tells her. I have never heard of such angels before. I didn't know they existed. Lockuse replies. Well, you learn something new every day. To satisfy your curiosity, without us needing to debate about it, my master trained me how to access my spells. That should do for now. If we ever get the time and you are willing to listen, maybe we can sit down and talk about it. Taylar says. I think I can handle that. Maybe you could bring your master, and I could talk to her too. Lockuse says. I'm afraid that isn't possible. She picks her apprentices, and she is very particular. She isn't likely to debate or discuss spells with anyone who isn't a student of hers, she tells her. Well, that is unfortunate, but I would still like to sit down and talk with you about it. Lockuse says. Very well, it's a date. Either after this situation, or next time we are in the capital. I'm going to go make sure everyone else is ready to go. We should head towards the square. It doesn't look like anyone is going to find that idol. It was very nice talking to all of you. Taylar says, and walks towards Ainz and company. She hopes she just confused the daylights out of Blue Rose. It would make this more interesting. Lockuse just watched her walk back to her team while she thought about what she said. Tia had to lighten the mood with a joke. Now that you got a date with a hot blonde, I'm sure you'll survive, evil boss.
What?
It is just to talk magic and you heard her. She is married genius. Lockuse says. Well, she could be married to Ariel. She is wearing a ring too, and she never told you who she was married to. Tia replies with a mischievous grin. I think it is more than likely they are all married to Mammon. Nabe is wearing a ring too. I'm sure being the Emperor's nephew on top of being a warrior that strong, it would be likely he would have more than one wife. Lockuse says to her. Well, even if that is true, it will probably upset Evil Eye, but at least you know she might be into women too, evil boss. Tia laughs. Gods, I never thought I'd wish Tina was here to stop you. Lockuse finally laughs. Tia's joking around finally got Lockuse to get back into evil boss mode for the battle about to commence instead of thinking about what Bella had just said. There was obviously no one who was going to find this idol, and they needed to get moving as soon as possible. They gathered up and made their way towards the town square. Once they reached the wall of blood, Bella pulled out a white orb and held it to the wall. A portion of the wall large enough for Mammon to pass through opened, and she stood there while everyone made their way through. After she passed through, the opening closed back up. At another place along the wall of blood, a section of the wall opened in front of the soldiers holding the perimeter. When the soldiers in the front looked through, they saw hundreds of lesser vampires running right towards their lines. Some of the front line shields started to panic at the number of vampires coming their way. Right as the vampires slammed into the shield wall, some of them lost their nerve and tried running away. It made a temporary gap that was quickly filled, but not before some of the vampires made it through and started clawing at anything living they could see. The vampires were shredding up shields with their claws and doing their best to break the lines of the soldiers trying to fend them off. With nothing but lightly trained guards to hold the line and a commander who was only trained a bit more, the battle was not going well for them. They were going to need a miracle to survive this and prevent all these vampires from flooding into the city. As the commander looked around and saw the front line getting ready to collapse, he had no choice but to draw his sword and join the fray himself. When he dismounted his horse, he saw the front lines leaning back against the weight of the oncoming vampires. 6 vampires saw this as an opportunity and used the shields like a springboard and jumped over the line straight towards the commander. Right as they reached the peak of their jump, the commander heard someone call out from behind him. 6-fold slash of light. All 6 of the vampires were cut in half and turned into black dust before they could even start their descent towards the ground. The commander turned around and saw Gazef Stronov standing there, his men standing right behind him, and the king on his horse right behind them. It was a truly inspiring sight for the commander to behold. Run them through, men, Gazef tells the soldiers, and they begin dispatching the lesser vampires, as though they are little more than goblins to them. Fear not, people of Ainz. We shall not let these vile undead harm you, as long as we are around. Prince Zanuck declares to them from behind the king. He is sitting on his horse, fully armored, and holding a sword in his hand. In the town square, the Forsaken and remaining members of Blue Rose had encountered exactly what they expected. The Blood Countess and her vampire brides were waiting right in the center of the square for them. The Blood Countess was just staring at them, tapping her foot and pointing to the huge clock tower off to her left. It was to let them know they had 5 minutes to hand over her idol to her. If you are here early, you must have what I am looking for. Hand it over, and I'll be on my way, she tells them. Your idol is not here. We searched everywhere for it. You're looking in the wrong place. Ainz says to her. You think I'll believe what you say? I know it is here. I felt it here when they tried to control me. Hand it over, or I will destroy this place as punishment for keeping it from me, she demands from them. It is not here. Zuranon was dealt with a while ago. You missed it, Blood Countess. Ainz says to her. Bullshit. It is here, and I will find it, she screams. Then I guess I'll have to stop you, Ainz says. He charges right at Shaltir and swings both of his great swords down on her with great force. Shaltir reaches up and grabs both of his great swords with her hands, but it pushes her into the ground a bit, and a small crater forms underneath of them. Oh my, you have gotten stronger, Lord Mammon, or is it Emperor of the Wasteland Mammon now? I get so confused. Shaltir says, then spinning kicks Mammon right in the chest, sending him flying through a few buildings, including the clock tower. Everyone sees the building he just went through start to topple over, including the clock tower. It kicks up a huge dust cloud, and Blue Rose is worried Mammon just got crushed underneath one of those buildings. As the rumbling stops from the collapsing buildings, they see a figure emerging from the dust holding 2 swords out from his body. Not bad. I see you have been doing more than just indulging yourself with your bride's countess, Mammon says as he approaches. He plants his foot in the ground and springs forward at lightning speed, kicking up the pavement from the square in his wake. When he gets close to the Blood Countess, he spins his body around with both his great swords aimed right at the vampire's side. The Blood Countess puts her hands out to catch them again, but instead of stopping them, she is sent flying the other direction in the square through some buildings, bringing them down in the process, right on top of her. She jumps up from the debris and dusts herself off like it didn't hurt a bit. I knew this would be fun, Lord Mammon. Let's see if you can really entertain me, Shaltir says as her and Ainz charge at each other again. They're moving so fast, no one from Blue Rose can see their movements. They only witness buildings being toppled, debris flying everywhere, and the clashing of weapons. They snap out of their amazement at the battle going on in front of them as they hear footsteps approaching. Locuse directs her 6 floating swords towards the vampire brides charging right now. One at each of them, which they all dodge easily. They gather back behind her as one of them approaches her ready to strike. She pulls back her weapon and slashes at the approaching vampire. She tries to attack her ribs, head, neck, legs, anything to get this vampire away from her, but it is difficult connecting. She is dodging every attack she tries against her. Locuse is about at her wit's end and decides to use her sword's ability to make the vampire back off and hopefully do a decent amount of damage. She reaches back and makes the swords enlarge a bit and starts to bring her weapon forward for her attack. CZ Delta was tasked with dealing with a human known as Locuse Alveandale Aindra. While she was specialized in ranged combat, close quarters was not an area she was unfamiliar with. Given the parameters of her mission, she should have no trouble holding off an adventurer of this caliber in close quarters combat for the allotted amount of time the Supreme Beings and Overseer Albedo had given to her. CZ Delta recognized the slightly above average attack pattern of the adventurer right away. It made for dodging her attacks quite easy because of the predictable pattern of her attacks. When CZ Delta saw her get frustrated and enlarge her weapon, she knew the weapon attack was coming and needed to prevent it as per her mission statement. She took a quick dash forward before Locuse could swing the weapon and punched her right in the stomach. Locuse couldn't help but bend over as all the air was expelled from her lungs. That is when CZ Delta grabbed her by the back of her hair and pulled her backward and straight into the ground. The ground cracked underneath Locuse, and her vision went blurry as she was slammed directly onto her back. She saw a fist being raised through her blurry vision and quickly rolled to the left to avoid it. As she rolled away, she leaped back on her feet and used a silent cure spell on herself. Silent, cure serious wounds. Her bloody nose, bruised face, and sore body instantly recovered, and she could see clearly again. It was perfectly timed because CZ Delta had charged straight at her again, barely giving her enough time to recover at all before she engaged her in close quarters combat once again. Tia currently found herself engaging the shortest of the vampire brides in melee combat. She was better suited to the shadows, but was also able to keep up with most her level in melee combat. Right as the vampire dodged Locuse's floating sword, Tia had dashed forward with a slash attack directed right at the vampire's throat. The vampire had blocked it with what seemed like relative ease, then Tia had started engaging the vampire from all angles. To Tia, it seemed like this vampire had eyes in the back of her head, and just about every time she tried to attack her, from any angle, she almost always came away with a cut from the vampire's claws. Entoma Vasilissa Zeta was told to delay the human known as Tia. She would have much rather preferred something with more meat than this one, but she was not allowed to snack on this little appetizer. Her only job this time was to string out melee combat long enough for the Supreme Ones and Overseer Albedo's plan to work. Entoma might be an entomancer as her primary classes, but her weapon master levels allowed her to engage in this sort of melee combat with ease. Fighting against someone who relied on blind spots is what made this so simple for Entoma because she had no blind spots. Entoma possessed what is known as omnidirectional vision. It was a racial ability she had that let her see 360 degrees around her, making it impossible to sneak up on her. So every time the human ninja would think she had an opening, Entoma would let her get in close, then give her a small slash in an open area. She was told not to kill the ninja, but they didn't say she couldn't cut her up a little and have some fun. Taylar currently found herself engaged in combat with a vampire bride of her own. They were trading blows as they made their way around the square. Something was frustrating Taylar, though, and luckily, the distance between each of them and the battles being waged around her made it loud enough that she could voice those displeasures. Lupus Regina Beta. Stop taking it easy on me. If you believe you can hurt me so easily, I have no right calling myself your queen, she frustratingly says to her. Taylar had barely had a chance to do anything while they had been adventuring, especially when it came to melee combat. She was quite rusty, and was hoping a good spar with Lupus Regina would knock some of the rust off. Unfortunately, it seemed Lupus Regina was terrified to attack her queen and was barely fighting at all. Lupus Regina thought she drew the short end of the stick when it came to who they needed to engage in combat. There was no one she looked up more to than Lady Taylar. They might have different personalities, but Lady Taylar was everything she wanted to be as a priestess. She not only possessed the highest tiers of all healing and damaging divine spells one could have, but she was also a war priestess. A class Lupus Regina desperately wanted to obtain to show she was growing and helping Nazarick just as Narbal Gamma was doing. While most would see a spar with their idol as a great opportunity to learn, however, Lupus Regina did not want to cause Lady Taylar any harm no matter how remote the possibility. All this did, though, was seem to upset Lady Taylar that she wasn't pushing herself and made Lupus Regina ashamed she thought she could even harm such a supreme being. After Taylar's outburst on Lupus Regina, she seemed to finally try earnestly against Taylar. She was mixing up her attack patterns, attacking multiple levels of her body, and constantly going on the offensive against her. Taylar was impressed by what Lupus Regina was doing against her. She wanted a good sparring match, and Lupus Regina was giving everything she could considering she was only level 61 going up against a level 100. Nabe was currently engaging the only actual vampire bride there really was. Clementine was trying her damnedest to damage Nabe, but nothing she was doing was working at all. It was taking her some time to adjust to attacking without her stilettos, so her combat prowess wasn't back up to what it once was yet. Nabe was having fun playing with the once member of Zuranon who tried to run her mouth about the Pleiades. Nabe made sure to cut her up a little as per Lady Albedo's instructions to her. It always made Nabe smile at how much it offended Lady Albedo that Clementine had insulted them. Nabe would follow her instructions to the letter and make sure Clementine knew she was well beneath any of the Pleiades. Originally, they were going to have Clementine engage with Albedo so she could disappear and check in on the operation as it was happening. Since Clementine was by far the weakest of all of them, it made the most sense to get her away from the battle. However, after noticing Albedo all too willing to accept her after her insult, Ainz and Taylar thought it might be better if Solution was the one to engage Albedo instead. That is why when everyone started engaging each other, Albedo had shield bashed Solution straight through a building and followed right after her, as though they were fighting like everyone else. When they were out of sight of everyone else, Albedo checked in on the progress with her eyes back in Nazarick. "How is everything going on your end, Oriole?" "We have secured all the supplies and the remaining people back in Nazarick and Albedo." "Were there any problems with anyone?" "Everything went off without a problem, Aunt Albedo. Your timing of sending in the lesser vampires pulled the warrior captain away from our last target." "That is good to hear. Do you remember the sign to teleport Shaltir and the Pleiades?" "Yes, Aunt Albedo. I can see the battlefield now and am ready to teleport them when ready." "All right, baby girl. It will be happening soon, so be ready." As Albedo is checking in with Oriole and everyone else is engaged with their opponents, Evil Eye and Yuri Alpha were currently rolling across the battlefield trying to take each other out. Well, Evil Eye was rolling around in a crystal ball she was using as protection against Yuri's unarmed attacks. Evil Eye kept trying to put some distance between her and Yuri, but she was proving too fast for Evil Eye to avoid for long. She had been repeatedly pounding on Evil Eye's crystal sphere protection, and it was close to breaking. Evil Eye had been trying to slow her down with her crystal spells, but the vampire seemed to absorb any spell cast at her. The last punch Evil Eye received from Yuri had broken her crystal sphere, and it was now time for Evil Eye to try something new because rolling around on the ground with an unarmed melee combatant was not working for her.
Crystal wall fly.
Evil Eye puts a crystal wall between her and Yuri, then casts Fly on herself so she can take to the air and rain down crystal on her enemy. The moment she started floating up in the sky to cast a spell, she heard something behind her and turned around to see what it was. When she turned her head, all she saw was a fist connecting with her chin and sending her straight back into the ground hard. The bottom part of Evil Eye's mask had broken off as the fist slammed into her chin. When she hit the ground, she activated Fly to hurry and get back on her feet and not be caught in such a helpless position. She saw Yuri coming straight at her, giving her no time to figure out where she was. Evil Eye needed to keep Yuri away for a moment, and she had the perfect spell to hinder movement, sight, and give her a few seconds to collect herself. Sand field all. A small hurricane-like sandstorm swirled around Evil Eye as she bought herself some time to collect her thoughts and think of a different strategy to engage this vampire. This Tier 5 spell was designed to immobilize, blind, silence, and daze anyone caught in it. So this should buy her a few seconds to collect herself. Right as she was finished thinking that, Yuri suddenly appeared coming through the sand at a very fast pace. Evil Eye was so caught off guard that she could make it through the sandstorm that she didn't have any time to react at all, and Yuri wrapped her arms around Evil Eye in a bear hug. She was holding the caster's arms down at her side, so she couldn't cast any spells at her. Once Yuri had Evil Eye to where she was no threat without her spell casting, she cocked her head back and slammed it straight into Evil Eye's face. The force of the headbutt sent Evil Eye's head back and dazed her for a moment. Yuri headbutt her again and again and again, finally cracking her mask as she repeatedly rained down headbutts straight into Evil Eye's face and mask. As Yuri was busy giving Evil Eye a nice, welcoming hug, Ainz sent Shelter flying through the square after an attack, and she landed at the far end of the square opposite from where the sandfield was currently starting to die down. Once Shelter had gotten to her feet again, all her vampire brides disengaged from combat and gathered next to her. "It seems it is your lucky day," Lord Mammon, one of my pretty brides, says. "She has found my idol in another country. Time to take my leave of you." Shelter grins wickedly at everyone. "You aren't getting away from me, that easy monster," Ainz says and charges at Shelter only to run into an invisible wall. He attacks it with his great swords and begins pounding on it when his swords don't break it down. "Oh, strong Lord Mammon, even you can't break through a wall of force," she giggles at him. "It seems you have more pressing matters to concern yourself with than me." She points towards the other end of the square. "Bye for now. I hope you aren't too hard on the little princess. She has been hiding herself for so long I don't even think she knows who she is anymore." Shelter laughs, and the teleportation circle appears again, and she disappears along with her vampire brides. They all hear two voices calling out to them. They sound a little weak, but they all turn and see Tina and Gagarin running towards them to help. Neither of them should be out of bed yet. They had just been raised only a few hours ago and certainly didn't have the strength to fight yet. "We tried to get here as fast as we could, evil boss,"
Tina says.
"Sorry, dying makes you a little slower. What is up with Shore, Ty?" Gagarin says, then stutters at the end when she sees Evil Eye standing up. Everyone looks across the square to where she pointed and sees Evil Eye standing up. She is swaying from the repetitive headbutts from Yuri and is having trouble standing straight up. When she gets her feet under her and looks to see if anyone needed any help, that is when they all noticed it. Her mask was laying on the ground in pieces. Yuri had apparently smashed it to bits with her face, and now everyone, including all the members of Blue Rose, can see she is a vampire. Locus yells. Evil Eye got her bearings and looked at the people around her. Her eyes first looked to her right at the Forsaken. They were standing about 50 feet away to her right. The first person she looked at
Was Bella.
She was standing the closest to her, and when she locked eyes with her, she seemed to smile at her a little. The meaning behind that gesture did not go unnoticed by Evil Eye. For someone to look a vampire right in the eye and smile, not worrying about them using their eyes as a weapon against them, it made Evil Eye smile a little and bare one of her fangs towards her. As she looked down the line of the rest of the members, she looked at them all in the eye. It didn't matter the look on their faces they gave her, or it didn't in Mommon's case, since he was wearing a helmet. None of them looked away as she looked at them in the eye. It gave her a little hope that this wouldn't be so bad of a thing. She just hoped her sisters felt the same way. Her eyes quickly went from right to left to look at the next group of people. It was Lockuse and Tia standing directly in front of her, but slightly farther away than the Forsaken were to her. She saw Lockuse with her mouth hanging open and almost wanted to laugh, but she needed to do something first. She looked her right in the eyes, and Lockuse almost immediately looked at the ground when she locked eyes with her. The small smile that had spread on her face quickly disappeared, and the hope she had gotten from before was quickly fading. She looks at Tia standing next to her and gets some hope back as she looks her in the eyes. Unfortunately, she loses it again as Tia looks at the ground after just a moment longer than Lockuse. She continues to the left and looks at Tina. She had just come back from the dead and rushed here to help. She was covered in blood from running through that wall, but Evil Eye barely noticed that. Her hope turned to nothing then finally, when she saw Tina look at the ground the moment they locked eyes, it went to despair. If her sisters couldn't accept her after all this time, what was the point of it all? She would do anything for them, even give her life if it would save them, but the moment they find out what she truly is, they worry about her harming them because she is a vampire. She finally looks towards Gagarin to see her reaction. She had a feeling she would be the worst of them, and she was not wrong. When she looked at her, covered in blood, she didn't look away. Gagarin's face was one Evil Eye couldn't really figure out. It was either fear or rage. She wasn't sure which one. Gagarin also wasn't standing there like everyone else. She had apparently snapped out of her stupor unlike the others and was charging directly at her with her hammer held high. She was obviously about to attack her, but Evil Eye didn't care. She opened her arms out wide, tilted her head back, and closed her eyes. If my sisters can't accept me, there is no point. After more than 200 years, it will finally end. She thinks to herself, waiting for her strike. She feels a gust of wind as she hears Gagarin get within range. The next sound is unexpected as she hears metal clashing together, then feels a large gust of wind rush past her entire body.
She
Opens her eyes and sees Bella standing in front of her. She has her two short swords crossed and is holding back Gagarin's attack. This surprises almost everyone around for two reasons. First being that she is actually holding back her attack at all, and also because she just saved a vampire. Bella brings her arms down to her side as she crosses her blades and pushes Gagarin back a little to give them some room. What the hell is wrong with you? Bella yells right at Gagarin.
Me.
What is wrong with you? Gagarin yells back and louder. I've known her for a few hours and could already tell what kind of person she is. You all have been with her for years and you instantly attack her because she is a vampire. I feel like I'm back in the slain theocracy. Bella then points the short sword in her right hand at Lockuse and looks at her. Are you going to try and burn me at the stake now because I don't get my spells from a god? Is this whole wretched land filled with people like you? Is there anywhere around here that doesn't see anything that isn't human as more than just something to kill?
Well,
Tell me. Bella yells, looking at all the members of Blue Rose. None of them can say anything. They are just standing there completely stunned at the scolding they just got. It was like they had just stolen a cookie from the cookie jar, and their mom had caught them. They all felt a little shameful, but before they could voice any opinion, Bella turned to Evil Eye and said, Don't throw your life away for people who don't accept who you are. There is no need for you to die. Just come with us instead. What? Evil Eye and Lockuse both shout. Evil Eye really has no idea what to say. She had just given up on life, or unlife I guess in her case. Now, Bella was saying her team would accept her as a vampire and have no issue with it whatsoever. She was touched by the gesture, but leaving Blue Rose wasn't something she ever pictured. Evil Eye can't think of what to say, but before she could really figure it out, someone cut in. Wait. Evil Eye hears from the right of her. She looks over and sees that it was Lockuse who screamed that. She is walking towards them, still looking at the ground. Lockuse takes a deep breath and looks up at Evil Eye, right in the eyes. She doesn't look away as she says to her, I'm sorry, it was just surprising and my adventurer instincts kicked in seeing a vampire. I don't want you to leave, sister. All of that hope that had been washed away by despair suddenly came back tenfold. She was so happy to hear her sister say that she couldn't help but closes the distance quickly with her vampire speed and hug Lockuse around the waist. To be honest, Lockuse was a little scared at first. It was definitely going to take some getting used to knowing that one of her sisters was a vampire, but Lockuse definitely thinks she can do it. She returned the hug to Evil Eye and said, "So, I'm guessing your name isn't really Evil Eye?" "Well, it is, but I also used to be Kino Phasris in Vern and Landfall." Evil Eye says, "As nice as it is to see you accepting Evil Eye, I think it is time we head back to the palace. You will have plenty of time to catch up later." Bella says, "She's right, but my mask is broken. I can't walk around the capital like this." Evil Eye says, "Here." Bella reaches in her cloak and pulls out a mask. It is a little less powerful than the one you had, but it should do the trick. Evil Eye grabs the mask and looks at it. It is basically the same mask she was just wearing, but opposite colors. Instead of a white mask with black streaks and a red gem, it is a black mask with white streaks and a blue gem. Evil Eye puts it on, and it fits just like the other one did. Yours actually told people your race was whatever was most acceptable to them as an individual, so it was a little nicer than this one. This one just makes people think you are human. Bella tells her, "Are you sure I can have this? Couldn't you just sell it or use it for something later?" Evil Eye asks, "You can take it. We use them for balls where I was from, so it isn't a big deal. Not like we're going to any balls in my home country anytime soon." Bella tells her, "You set this all up, didn't you?" Lockuse says to Bella. "Set what up?" Bella asks, wondering what she means because that could mean a multitude of things in this situation. "Us accepting Evil Eye as a vampire," Lockuse says. "I was hoping to ease you into it, but yes, it was the reason I told you the story about the elder lich I used to know. I was going to tell you more stories about the time I spent with him and the coolest mummy we ever met. I figured we would be seeing each other every once in a while since we are all adamantite adventurers in the same country. I didn't expect it to happen this sudden, but it seems to have worked out." Bella looks around, and everyone from Blue Rose seems to have at least somewhat accepted that Evil Eye is a vampire. Well, everyone except it looks like Gagrin. She still looks a little angry for some reason. Everyone else seems to have noticed this too, and they are all staring at her. "Gagrin, why are you still angry?" Lockuse asks. I can't believe you just accept it like that. She's a vampire," Gagrin says. She isn't yelling, but it seems like she wants to. "She has saved our lives countless times already, Gagrin. She is our sister. I'll admit it will take some getting used to, but I'm not going to turn my back on her after all this time." Lockuse started to raise her voice near the end there, and is almost shouting at Gagrin. "I need some time," Gagrin says, and then just turns and walks away. Gagrin. Lockuse and Evil Eye both yell, but she just keeps walking and doesn't look back. "I'm sorry about that, but she will come around. You just need to give her some time." Bella says to them, "We should get back to the palace and let everyone know what happened. Well, almost everything." Mammon says to the group as he approaches. They head back to the palace and let the princess know what happened in the square. They obviously left out the part of everyone finding out Evil Eye was a vampire. It didn't take long for them to talk, and the Forsaken were soon headed back to Erantal on the floating boards of Marquis Raven. Only Blue Rose, minus Gagrin, and Marquis Raven were there to see them off, but all they cared about was the ridiculous sum of money the Marquis had paid them to come here. Taylar appreciated the thanks she received from Blue Rose about helping them accept Evil Eye as she is. "Honestly, I'm still not sure why you did that," Ainz says to Taylar on their way back. "Don't worry, my love. You'll find out soon enough," she says to him.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.